This moment was waiting for you, not to fix you, but to hold you. Welcome to noble silence. In silence, we return to peace. You've come far, but not in miles, in aches, in echoes, in quiet collapses. And now the gravel path has ended. The forest no longer watches your steps. There is only a small gate ahead, made of no wood, no stone, no name, only stillness. A monk once said, "The temple is not a place you enter. It is what enters you when the noise ends." So here you are, and here it begins. Not with a trumpet, not with a torch, but with breath, the kind that almost forgets itself. Can you feel it? That soft hush in the chest, as if something is bowing inside you. Not to the world, but to the moment. You don't have to answer anything, or perform for anyone. This temple is not built for seekers with questions. It is built for the exhausted who have nothing left to ask. You do not need wisdom tonight, only warmth. Only the breath of ancient wood, candlelight, and the hush of monks who speak less with words and more with presence. Let the night do the walking now. Let your feet become still. Let your hands forget their work. You have done enough. Let that sentence wrap around your body like a robe. You have done enough. The soft gate does not open for the accomplished. It opens for the weary, the ones who have tried every door and found only themselves kneeling beside it all. Now, kneel here too, not out of defeat, but of return. Let the breath settle, let the jaw ungrip, let the story slow. The temple doesn't care what you've built, only what you're willing to unbuild. You do not need to understand yet, only to arrive, only to breathe, only to let go of the need to hold anything at all. There is a bowl in front of you, invisible but sacred. Place your thoughts in it, one by one, each one a small stone, each one a burden that believes itself important, and watch as the bowl doesn't judge, doesn't label, doesn't answer, it just receives. This is what the monks call the first bell of silence, not a sound, but a surrender. You are now inside the temple, not because you moved, but because something let go inside you, and it rang like a soft gong, right behind your heart. Stay here. No one is coming to find you, because you're not lost. You're just here. Finally, here. And the walls of this place are not stone or paper. They are made of listening. Now breathe, and listen with your whole body. The night has a voice, and it is about to speak. The candle was lit long before you arrived, but it did not flicker. It waited. It waited like old monks wait at the edge of the mountain path, not wondering if you'd come, but simply trusting you would. Because even the wind knows that all souls return to the place they forgot they belonged. So here, on this low wooden floor, you are not a student. You are not a pilgrim. You are not even a guest. You are the one the silence has been preparing for. There is a cup beside you, porcelain, cracked, yet perfectly round. It holds warm tea, not as a ritual, but as a mirror. Notice how it steams without rushing. Notice how it offers itself without asking anything in return. This is the lesson you are not being taught, but remembered. To be without proving, to offer without asking, to live like a cup of warm tea in a cold monastery. And now, the candle speaks. Not with words, but with flicker, with the slow wave of surrender that dances and bends, never breaking. It tells you this: truth does not demand you arrive strong, only honest, only open, only willing to sit quietly until the masks grow tired and fall. Let them fall, all of them. The mask of who you were today. The mask of who you were last year. The mask of who you're still pretending to be in someone else's story. You are none of them, and all of them, and more than both. Now, place the masks beside the tea. Let them steep in your silence. Breathe. You are in the temple now. and the temple is in you. The monks would say, when the candle burns low, the truth stands taller. So let this first moment be a soft bow. Not to the Buddha, not to the teaching, but to yourself, the one brave enough to stop seeking, the one quiet enough to hear the sound of silence bowing back. Close your eyes, hold nothing, expect nothing. Just notice the breath as it passes like a monk through the gate of your lips. You are safe. You are welcome. You are already home. And now, the first story waits just beyond the breath. Let us begin. There is an old path in the forest, bent and half forgotten. The monks call it the path of the unseen wound. It begins with a traveler, a gentle one, like you, a person who never meant to become tired, but somewhere along the path, he did. One day, while walking the same forest trail as always, he was struck. An arrow. Silent. Sudden. Uninvited. Not from an enemy, not from a thief. Just life. The kind of pain that doesn't ask permission. And he fell not from weakness, but because pain knocks even the strongest to their knees. Now pause here, because this is where most stories would end. Wounded. Breathless. Waiting for help. But not this one, because what came next was not the forest's fault, not fate, not karma. It was his own hand, shaking, confused, tired of hurting. He reached for another arrow, and he drove it into his own wound. The monks call this the second arrow, the one we fire when we start asking, why me? What did I do wrong? Will it always feel this way? Did I deserve this? The mind, trying to protect us, creates stories, but sometimes those stories become the weapon, and in trying to outrun the pain, we deepen it, we relive it, name it, judge it, own it like a title. That's what the second arrow does. It's not physical, it's mental, emotional, invisible to the world, but sharp inside. You've felt it, haven't you? Not just the pain itself, but the shame for feeling it, the guilt for not healing fast enough, the judgment for not being stronger. The second arrow is quiet, but heavy, and it's often the one that keeps you awake at night. Not what happened, but how your mind has tried to make meaning out of what hurt. But what if you didn't need to? What if the first arrow was enough? What if being human was not something to solve, but something to soften around? Breathe here. Feel what it's like to pull out the second arrow, not with force, but with compassion. You are not the wound. You are the one who is still here despite it. Let that be enough for now. In a monastery tucked between two quiet hills, an old monk was asked once, "Why do I keep suffering the same pain, again and again?" He looked up from his sweeping, smiled gently and said, "Because you keep sharpening the second arrow." The student was confused. So the monk drew a circle in the dust with his broom. A simple loop, unbroken. "This is your mind," he said. "It walks in circles around the first pain, and each time it completes a loop, it asks another question. Why? What if only? And each question is a whetstone, sharpening the second arrow, until one day it cuts deeper than the first ever could. You see, pain is inevitable, but suffering is often self-authored, and yet you are not wrong for doing it. You are not foolish for trying to understand your pain. You are only human, and being human means sometimes using thought like a bandage. But when the bandage becomes a blade, that's when we begin to wake. Not all thoughts are healing. Some only reopen the wound. Tonight, you are invited to put down the whetstone. Let the second arrow dull. Let the story rest. Let the questions remain unanswered. Sleep does not ask for resolution, only surrender, only presence. There is a stream nearby, just outside this temple. It runs without knowing where it goes. It sings, but never explains its song. It carries leaves without naming them. It is free because it flows. You can be like that, even if just for tonight. You do not need to know why it happened. You only need to know it is no longer happening now. Let the breath come. Let the thought pass. Let the old arrow stay on the ground. You do not need to pick it up again. It taught you what it came to teach. Now, let it leave. The monks say, suffering ends not when we heal the wound, but when we stop touching it. Place your hand gently over your chest. Feel the quiet movement. That is life. That is now. That is enough. And now, the traveler sits by the fire, not healed, not enlightened, just still. There is no arrow in his hand, no judgment in his eyes, only breath, moving like wind through pine. You don't have to become him. You already are. Because the moment you stop piercing yourself with questions is the moment you begin to remember your peace. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are simply here with a mind that meant well, but a soul that longs for rest. So rest. There is no one watching, no exam to pass, no test to prove how spiritual you've become. Only the firelight, only the breath, only the quiet monk beside you, who speaks not with answers but with presence. Let the silence speak to you now. It might sound like, I forgive you. It might sound like, you can stop now. It might sound like nothing at all, just a warmth in your belly as the second arrow finally dissolves. And in that dissolving, a small truth emerges. You don't need to fix the past. You only need to stop reliving it. Not to forget it, but to let it float, like an old leaf on that mountain stream, still real, but no longer clutched. Tonight, the second arrow stays on the ground. You are not its target anymore. Tonight, you walk into sleep with an empty quiver, no weapons, no blame, no need to defend your pain. You are free, not because you fought, but because you stopped fighting. Let the story end here with the silence that comes after the war. The monks would bow now, and you may bow too, not to them, but to yourself, the one who saw the second arrow and chose to drop it. Now breathe. Feel the coolness of peace. Feel the monk's fire dim to amber. You are safe. You are soft. You are home. Let go. The next story is waiting quietly beyond the breath. There is a river hidden in the folds of an old forest. It moves without memory. It bends without resistance. It sings without needing to be heard. Tonight, you are drifting on that river, not paddling, not steering, just floating, in a boat so small, even your name feels too heavy to carry. The water knows where it's going. You don't have to. Your body softens with the current. Even your mind, that watchful guard, starts to loosen its grip. You do not need to think right now. Only feel, only breathe. Only trust that stillness has its own intelligence. The boat is wooden, old, weathered, like something that's held many stories, but has forgotten them all. You sit in the center, back straight, heart open, not because you are disciplined, but because you are done being in control. You drift. A single bird calls above the canopy. The sound echoes like a blessing, not a command, just a sound that says, you are not alone. The river bends again. You bend with it. You do not resist. You have no reason to. But then a sound, a sudden jolt. Another boat crashes softly into yours. It isn't violent, but it is unexpected. You look up. Heart tightens. The mind races. Who did this? Were they not watching? How careless. But then, you see, there is no one in the boat. It's empty. No captain, no rower, no intent. Just a hollow, drifting vessel nudged by the same river that carries you. And something happens in you. A breath, a silence, a loosening. You laugh, not loudly, not out of joy, but out of truth. The monks would call this the moment the self dissolves. Because if the boat had been full, you would have blamed. You would have clung to the story. They hurt me. They should have known better. I was wronged. But the boat was empty, and so there was no one to blame. And suddenly, there was no reason to suffer. Let this image rest inside you now. Let it breathe. You, the river, your little boat, and every collision in your life that might have been just another empty vessel. The mind, when wounded, asks, "Who did this to me?" It needs a name, a reason, a figure to point toward, because to the ego, pain without a villain feels unbearable. But what if some boats are just empty? What if the bump on your soul was not personal but the wind? What if they didn't mean to hurt you? Or better yet, what if they were never even really there? This doesn't excuse cruelty. This doesn't justify injustice. But it does offer freedom, because the more we believe that every bruise must have a face, the more we keep rowing in circles of resentment. The monks say, most harm is not about you. It is the wind, pushing boats that don't know where they're going. You were bumped, yes, but now you must decide, will you chase the ghost, or will you breathe and float on? Breathe now, deep but soft. Think of someone who hurt you, not the sharpest wound, just a familiar bruise. Now imagine them as an empty boat, not soulless, just unaware, just lost, just windblown. And something strange happens. The weight shifts. The grip loosens. Not because you're pretending, not because it didn't matter, but because the story no longer needs to be written with your pain. You are not erasing the past. You are releasing the chain that tied your boat to theirs. You are free to drift now, to let go of the paddle, to forgive not because they earned it, but because your peace has waited long enough. A dragonfly lands on the bow. It does not ask you to understand. It only invites you to stay still. Let that stillness deepen. The river grows wider. Stars blink above like forgotten prayers. Your little boat moves through moonlight. There is no oar, no map, only breath and space, and something holy you can't quite name. You've been here before in the in-between, where sleep begins to soften the spine and truth begins to whisper without words. This is where the monks live, not in monasteries of stone, but in moments just like this. Moments where nothing must be done, nothing must be understood, only released. They would say, blame is a stone that cannot float. If you carry it, you will sink. So tonight, place the stone gently in the water. Watch it drop. No splash, just gone. And notice how the boat feels lighter. That's what happens when you let the empty boats drift by. You stop living in reaction. You start floating in presence. Not passive, but peaceful. Not detached, but deeply, silently free. Let your shoulders release now. You don't need to explain yourself to the dark. It already understands. You are not your wounds. You are not the collisions. You are not the story you once had to tell just to feel real. You are the watcher, the witness, the soul in the boat who finally realized there was never an enemy, only wind, only water, only moments. And now this moment asks for nothing but rest. You are not who you were when the boat first set sail. You are lighter now, quieter, wider. You carry no arrows, no maps, no names, only the lesson. When the boat is empty, there is no one to forgive and everything to let go. Let go. Let the monk in you smile. Let the river in you flow. Let the story end without a need to finish it. You are already there, already free, already safe, already home. And just like that, the current takes you deeper into the silence where no second arrows wait and no boats ever truly crash. Only drift, only breath, only peace. Now rest. The next story will come when the river bends again, Let the night carry you there. You arrive at the temple with a question on your back, not just tonight, but for years. A silent question, the kind that lives behind your thoughts, waiting in the shadows of your decisions. You've carried it through love, through failure, through every moment where life whispered, "There must be more than this." And so, you arrive, not to be praised, not to be seen, but to be undone. The Master does not greet you with welcome, nor with wisdom. He simply lifts his eyes from the fire and says, "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" That is all. No lecture, no chant. Just the question placed in front of you like an invisible bowl. You wait for more. There is no more. So you bow and return to your mat. You think. Of course you do. Your mind begins to twist the question like a puzzle. Maybe it's metaphor. Maybe it's a trick. Maybe it's some secret language of the enlightened. You imagine answers. You discard them. You try to be clever, then humble, then clever again. But the Master does not ask for cleverness, only for presence. And presence does not explain. It only breathes. Days pass. Nights bend into silence. Still the question lingers. What is the sound of one hand clapping? You try to meditate, but the question becomes louder. You try to sleep, but your dreams begin echoing it. And slowly, something in you breaks, not painfully, not violently, but gently. Like a wall realizing it no longer needs to hold itself up, you begin to see the question isn't meant to be answered, it is meant to be lived. Let this sink into your body now. You are not here to solve. You are here to listen, to rest beneath the riddle, to hear the silence inside it, and maybe, just maybe, to become the silence yourself. There is a part of you, deep, quiet, unbothered, that already knows. It doesn't speak in thoughts. It doesn't argue. It doesn't reach. It only watches. And when the Master asked you the koan, it was that part of you he addressed. Not the student, but the stillness inside the student. You sit now on the cool stone floor of the temple. A candle flickers beside you. You do not need to know why it flickers. You do not ask where the wax goes. You simply sit beside it, and in doing so, you learn. This is the teaching, not in words, not in books, but in being near the thing that holds fire without burning for answers. The mind will keep trying, of course. It will beg for conclusions. It will say, "But I need to know. I need to understand. I need closure." But what if you don't? What if the desire to solve is the very thing blocking the truth? You are not here to solve. You are here to stop sharpening the knife of the intellect against the stone of the soul. The monks would say, "You cannot grasp the sky with a closed fist. So open, not your hand but your awareness. Let the koan live in you like breath lives in the body. Let it echo without echoing. Let it ask without needing an answer. Because some truths are not understood by thinking. They are absorbed by surrender. And surrender feels like this. A breath, then another, then nothing. Not emptiness, but a kind of fullness that holds no weight. Let that hold you now, like the sound of no sound, the answer of no answer, the peace that has no name. It's nearly midnight in the temple. The others have fallen into sleep, but you remain not restless, but reverent. The koan still breathes beside you, but now it no longer feels heavy, just soft, like a cloak made of sky. You are no longer asking, "What does it mean?" You are simply being, and the being is enough. You lift your hand, hold it to the candlelight. Watch the way the shadows bend around it. Watch the flame respond without fear. And suddenly, without knowing why, you bow. Not because you found the answer, but because you no longer need it. The sound of one hand clapping was never a sound. It was a doorway, a way out of the mind that needs things to make sense before it can be still. And now you are still. Not perfectly, but purely. The monk would say, where the mind ends, the temple begins. You are in the temple now, not the one built of stone, but the one built of presence. The walls are silence. The roof is breath. The floor is your body, finally at rest. And the master, he sits nearby, eyes closed, smiling gently. He knew you would not answer. He only asked so you would learn how to let go of needing to. You are free now, free to not know, free to not think, free to fall asleep without solving the riddle, because the riddle was never a test, it was an invitation to trust silence, to trust sleep, to trust yourself. So, trust now, let go, fall gently backward into the soundless sky where even questions float like feathers and nothing sharp survives. There is no sound to hear, no hand to lift, no clap to measure. There is only this, stillness, breath, peace, and the fading echo of a question that no longer needs asking. Sleep now. The next story waits just beyond the silence. There was once a candle that had never been lit. It sat on a wooden table inside an old temple. Years passed. The seasons came and went. Monks walked past it daily, sweeping, chanting, bowing, but no one touched it. It remained intact, untouched, unmelted, still whole, but cold. One evening, a young monk approached. His hands were tired from service, his heart tired from silence. He looked at the candle, then at the flame in the far corner of the room, a small oil lamp flickering low, and he asked his master, "Why do we never light this candle?" The master smiled, then whispered, "Because it cannot light itself." The boy looked confused. "So, we're waiting for someone to light it." The master placed a hand over the boy's heart. "Number, we're waiting for you to light someone else." And suddenly, the boy understood. This is the first truth. You are the candle, and no matter how much wax, how much potential, how much wisdom you carry inside until you touch another with light, you remain unlit. You were never meant to burn alone, nor to wait for someone else to spark your flame. Your glow, your warmth, your radiance begins not by seeking fire, but by giving it. Compassion is that fire. It is not loud, not proud, but quiet. A warmth that says, "I see your pain. I cannot take it, but I will sit beside it. You do not have to walk through this night alone." And the strange, beautiful secret is this. When you do that for another, something awakens in you. You begin to glow, not because they gave you anything, but because in trying to light them, your own wick finally caught fire. Let that image rest beside you now like a bowl of light, placed gently at your feet. You are not here to wait for someone to rescue you with flame. You are here to become the fire by offering it to another. There's a kind of healing that doesn't arrive through fixing. It arrives through presence, through sitting beside someone who no longer believes they're worthy of being seen, and simply seeing them. That is the secret art of the monk. Not to rescue, not to speak, but to become a candle in the darkened room of someone else's despair. You may think, "But I'm not ready. I'm still broken, still lost, still trying to find my own light." But that is the second truth. The candle does not wait to be whole. It becomes whole by burning. You do not have to be healed to carry healing. You only have to be present, to witness, to notice, to offer your warmth without needing to be seen for it. There is a woman, you've never met her, but she is real. She lights incense every morning for a husband who left her. She has no words to pray, only the smoke, only the silence. You do not know her name, but she walks beside you in the collective ache of being human. There is a child he hides under the blanket each night, pretending his parents' voices can't reach him. He wishes the walls were thicker. He wishes the world were quieter. You do not know his face. But you carry his pain in your bones because all pain is shared. And there is a stranger, someone whose grief is fresh, someone who won't sleep tonight, someone whose chest has forgotten how to rise without trembling. And tonight, somehow, your light might reach them. Not because you fixed them, but because you remembered them. The monks would say, even an unseen flame still warms the room. So let your compassion glow in thought, in breath, in unseen prayer. You do not have to know who you're helping. You only need to know this. When you offer kindness, something sacred ignites, and it burns away a little of your own shadow in the process. Breathe now. Place your hand over your heart. Feel the warmth. Not imagined, real. That is your flame. You may not see it yet, but someone else will. And in their warmth, you'll feel it too. There is a final moment in the temple just before the last bell rings. The master gathers all the students and places a single candle in the center. He lights it, then hands that flame to the student beside him. One by one, each monk lights their candle from the one before. No flame diminishes, no light is lost. The room grows brighter with each act of receiving and giving. This is the third truth. Compassion is not subtraction, it is multiplication. What you give is not gone, it returns, again and again, sometimes in a smile, sometimes in a stranger's gesture, sometimes in the silence of your own healing. You have lit many people, even when you didn't know it. You smiled when you were tired. You listened when no one else did. You showed up when your own heart was breaking. And because of that, someone else found their flame again. Tonight, that someone may be listening beside you, unseen, unknown, but warmed by your light. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breath deepen. You do not need to hold the world, only to light a single corner of it. And let that be enough. The candle cannot light itself, but it was never meant to. You are here to remember. Your light expands not by trying harder, but by giving softer. Even now, as you lie still, as you drift, your presence glows. And somewhere, in another unseen room, a new candle flickers to life because of you. The monks would say, you do not find your light, you become it. So become it now, without force, without trying, simply by being the quiet flame that asks for nothing but gives everything. And now, rest. Let the room go dark, let the warmth remain. You are lit, you are giving, you are held. The next story waits like a candle in the dark, ready to be lit by your listening. Sleep, flame bearer. Sleep. There was a boy barefoot, dust-covered, eyes wide with longing. He had heard whispers of a sacred ox that lived in the mountains, an ox so pure that to find it was to find peace. And so he began his search. He walked for days, through wet fields and thorned paths, through shadowed groves where even birds held their breath. Each step was a question, each breath a plea. Where is the ox? Where must I go to find it? What must I become to be worthy? He asked the wind. The wind gave no answer. He asked the trees. They only swayed. He found a hoof print in the mud once, and for a moment his heart leapt. But when he followed it, the tracks vanished into silence. Night fell. He wept beneath the stars, not out of failure but out of fatigue. I've done everything, he whispered. Why is it still so far? But the stars said nothing. They only shimmered as if to say, stillness does not answer, it receives. The monks would say, when the seeker is exhausted, the path begins. And so, in that stillness, with no map, no sign, no direction, he slept, not to escape, but because he could no longer strive. And somewhere, in the hush between waking and sleep, something moved near him, something vast, something gentle, something that had never truly left. He woke before dawn. The mist was low, wrapping the earth like an old robe. He sat up slowly. His hands were empty. His heart was quieter now, no longer searching, just being. And that's when he heard it. A breath, not his own. It was slow, rhythmic, like a bellows from the belly of the world. He turned, and there it was. The ox, not in the mountains, not behind a hidden gate, but beside him, large, calm, ancient. Its eyes held no urgency, only recognition, as if to say, "You were never lost to me." He reached out a hand. The ox didn't move. It didn't need to. It had always been near, but the boy had been too loud, too full of seeking, to feel its presence. And now, with the seeking burned away, the ox revealed itself, not by arriving, but by always having been there. That is the sacred twist. What you seek is not hiding. It is waiting for your noise to soften. The monks would say, the ox is not in the forest, it is in the breath. Breathe now, slowly, like the boy beside the ox. Let the chase dissolve. Let the need to prove, to find, to earn, melt. You are not required to be anything tonight, only open, because the ox does not ask for purity, only presence. It does not demand wisdom, only stillness. Let that stillness deepen in your body. You are not missing anything. You are not behind. You are beside the ox now, and the ox is peace. He did not capture the ox. He did not ride it. He did not boast of his discovery. He simply walked beside it back the way he came. But now the path felt different. Not shorter, not clearer, just quieter. He passed the same trees, but this time he noticed their breath. He stepped through the same mud, but no longer cursed it. Even the birds seemed closer, because when the boy stopped searching, the world stopped resisting. That is the final truth of the ox. It was never separate, only unseen. And in this world, what is unseen is often misunderstood. We call it lost. We call it far. We call it hidden. But the ox was none of those. It was with him as a child. It was there in his fear. Even in his forgetting it waited. Because awakening does not arrive like thunder. It arrives like a presence you finally notice was always seated beside you. The monks would say, when you stop walking, you arrive. So, stop now. Not from failure, but from arrival. You've searched enough, struggled enough, proved enough, and still here you are, beside the ox, inside the truth, already home. Let the boy fade into dream. Let the ox graze quietly nearby. Nothing is required of you, not even awakening, only rest. And in that rest, a quiet bell rings inside your chest, the sound of something ancient smiling. Because the ox was never found, it was remembered. And now you remember too. Breathe, and let that be the answer. The next story waits where even the ox lays down to sleep. You may go there now, in silence, in light, in peace. In the mountains where the clouds bend low enough to drink from, there was a monastery that had no sign, no gate, no name. If you were meant to find it, you would. And if you asked what it was called, the monks would only smile and say, "It is called whatever you forget to name." In this monastery, there lived an old master. He had taught many students. He had answered many questions. He had bowed many bows. But one morning, something strange happened. He awoke just before the sunrise, as he always did. He dressed slowly, poured warm tea, stepped into the courtyard, and when a young monk bowed and said, "Good morning, master," the old man tilted his head and replied softly, "Who?" The young monk blinked. "You, master." But the old man just looked at him with the curiosity of a child and said again, "Who is that?" The young monk frowned. "Are you unwell?" The master simply sipped his tea and walked past him. That day, He did not enter the meditation hall. He did not teach the morning talk. He did not answer to his name because it no longer stirred anything in him. He had forgotten it, not in illness, not in fear, but in stillness. It had slipped away, like mist dissolving into sky. And in its absence, something else arrived. Not an idea, not a voice, not even clarity, just space. A sacred kind of emptiness. The kind you don't chase, the kind you don't fill, the kind you quietly become. Let this feeling touch you now. You too have worn a name for so long. You answer to it, you defend it, you attach stories to it like vines around a bell. But what if, just for a moment, you let the name go, not forever, not in rejection, but in kindness? What if your name was just a jacket hung over the back of a chair, and beneath it there was only breath? Would you still be here? Yes. Would you still be whole? Yes. Would you, perhaps, be even more? Let that settle into your spine. You are not your name. You are not your titles, not your timeline, not your roles. You are the watcher, the silent one beneath the layers. And sometimes, to find that one, the name must fall off. Just like it did for the master, he forgot who he was, and finally remembered what he'd always been. The other monks grew concerned. They whispered in the corridors. They wondered if the old master was declining. One approached gently and asked, "Do you not remember who you are?" The old man smiled, and with a finger drew a circle in the dust. "This," he said, "is who I am now." The monk frowned. "But master, it has no center." The old man nodded. Yes. There was no argument, no further explanation. That was the teaching. The master still walked the halls, still tended the garden, still swept the leaves. But he no longer answered to anything. He no longer narrated his movements. He no longer performed the self. And in this absence, something radiant bloomed. Not brightness, but silence. A deep quiet that made even the birds tilt their heads and listen. Students began to notice. When the master entered a room, they felt lighter, as if something heavy had left with him. He didn't speak wisdom anymore. He simply was it. He had become like an empty bell, resonating with every step, not because he had achieved anything, but because he had unachieved everything that wasn't real. And so, his forgetting became his offering. You may think, "But I don't want to lose myself. If I forget who I am, won't I disappear?" But here is the truth. You are already disappearing, moment by moment, thought by thought, breath by breath. The person you were 10 years ago is already gone. So is the one from yesterday. And yet you remain, because you are not what changes. You are what watches the change. You are not your face, not your age, not your opinions. Those are just costumes. You are the actor who stepped off stage and forgot the lines on purpose. And now you are free. Breathe into that. Tonight, you don't need to be anything, not successful, not spiritual, not clever, not even healed. You only need to rest in the space behind your story. The place where your name no longer echoes, where your image no longer clings. And in that sacred hollow, you do not vanish, you become vast. Years passed. The master grew older, slower, quieter, but never dim, never dull. His presence became more bell than body. One night, a new monk arrived, eager, bright-eyed, full of questions. He approached the master at dusk and said, "Please, teacher, tell me your name so I may remember this moment forever." The master smiled, not in dismissal, but in compassion, and he said, "I am the sound that only silence remembers." The monk blinked. "I don't understand." The master placed a hand on the young man's chest. "You don't need to. Only feel what remains when the self is quiet. And with that, he walked away, vanishing into the trees, like a breath returning to its source. That was the last time anyone saw the master speak, but his silence never stopped speaking. The temple continued. The students bowed. The birds returned. The wind kept sweeping the courtyards. And in the master's absence, something sacred remained. No statue was built. No name was engraved. No stories were written. Because how do you write about a man who became less and less until there was only peace? The monks would say, he became a bell without a tongue, but somehow we still heard him. And you, yes, you listening now, you are being invited to become that too. Not tomorrow, not after enlightenment. Now, you do not need to forget your name forever. You only need to loosen your grip on it, just for this moment, just for this breath. Let the identity fall off your shoulders like a robe placed beside the bed. You do not need to wear it into sleep. You are allowed to drift nameless into the dark, not lost, not erased, just released. You are not your job, not your trauma, not your past, not your ideas of who you should have been by now. You are the bell. You are the echo. You are the one who lets it all go. And in that letting go, you become what cannot be named, but is always present. The monks would bow now, not to the master, not to the teaching, but to you for daring to forget just long enough to remember what cannot die. Sleep, unnameable one. Sleep in the space where the self unhooks its mask and the sky touches your breath. You are here. You are whole. You are no one. And that is peace. The next story is waiting, but for now, be still. Let the name fall. Let the mask rest. Let silence complete the journey. You have arrived. There was a monk who owned very little. A robe, a set of prayer beads, and a single wooden bowl he carried each morning for alms. The bowl was smooth, worn at the edges from years of gratitude, not carved to impress but shaped by the silence of simple use. One evening, after a long day of walking, he placed his bowl beside the door of his hut and forgot to bring it in. He did not mean to leave it outside, but the night was warm, and his heart was tired, and some part of him trusted that nothing sacred could truly be lost. And so, beneath the deep blue sky, his bowl sat, open, empty, waiting for nothing. The moon was full that night. It rose slowly, carrying with it a softness too wide to hold in words. The village slept. The trees stood still. The mountains hummed beneath the earth. And in that perfect stillness, a miracle happened. The moonlight descended, not with drama, not with purpose, just gently, like breath resting on breath, and it fell into the bowl. Not physically, not like water, but fully, undeniably. The bowl caught it, held it, became it. When the monk woke before dawn, he stepped outside, barefoot, quiet, still wrapped in the dream of sleep. And he saw it, his bowl, resting in silver silence, holding the light of the moon, as if it had always been meant for that. He did not move, did not speak. He only looked, and something in him dissolved, because in that moment he understood something without needing to understand it. The bowl had done nothing. It had not reached, not prayed, not asked. It had simply stayed empty, and in doing so, it had been filled with the most sacred beauty imaginable. This is the first truth. What is most holy cannot be earned. It must be received. Let that truth enter you now like moonlight entering water. You do not need to strive for beauty. You do not need to achieve stillness. You only need to become like the bowl, open, unguarded, quiet enough to receive what already wants to arrive. You are not asked to be full, only to be open. You are not asked to be worthy, only to be here. Let the bowl rest beside your breath now. Let the moon rise inside your chest. No reaching, no thinking, just the sacred alignment of emptiness and light. The monk did not lift the bowl, not yet. He stood beside it for many long minutes, watching how the moonlight gathered at the curve, as if the bowl itself had remembered what it was made for. He noticed how the light moved, not with weight, but with presence. Not trapped, but welcomed. That is the secret of the bowl. It holds by not holding. It keeps by letting go. You may think, but how can I be filled with peace when my heart feels broken? How can I receive when I feel so empty? And the answer is this. The emptiness is the receiving. It is not the floor. It is the doorway. The moon does not look for perfect places to land. It falls wherever there is stillness, wherever there is space. You too are a bowl, carved by years, shaped by memory, cracked by love, and yet you are open. You are capable of holding light, but only when you stop trying to grasp it. The monk did not take a photo. He did not describe the moonlight. He did not write it in a book. He simply bowed, because the most sacred moments cannot be captured. They can only be witnessed. Breathe now. Let go of trying to remember. Let go of trying to explain. Let the moment fill you the way the moon fills the bowl. Not with answers, but with silence. Not with achievement, but with arrival. The monks would say, the bowl receives because it is nothing. Let yourself become that nothing, not in despair, but in devotion. You do not need to fix your life tonight. You do not need to discover your purpose. You do not need to solve your thoughts. You only need to sit beside your own breath with the same reverence the monk gave the bowl. And maybe, just maybe, something soft will descend. Not because you earned it, but because you finally made room for it. Eventually, the monk lifted the bowl. He didn't rush. He didn't pour the light away. He simply carried it back inside, as if the moon itself had given him permission to keep a little piece of night. But something had changed. Not in the bowl, not in the moon, in him. He had tasted what it meant to be held without needing to hold. He had seen what can arrive when one stops chasing, and from that day forward, he no longer used the bowl only for alms. He placed it each night beside his door, open, empty, expecting nothing. Some nights, it caught nothing at all, only darkness, only dew. Other nights, a sliver of moonlight, a wind-blown leaf, the hush of something unnamed. But that didn't matter, because the bowl had become a practice, a poem, a way of living. And slowly, the monk became more like the bowl himself, less full, more open. He spoke less, listened more. He no longer filled silence with sound. He let silence fill him. That is the final truth. You are most beautiful not when you are bright, but when you are still. You shine not from effort, but from openness. The moon does not try to impress the sky, it simply appears. And the bowl does not beg to be filled. It simply waits. Let yourself become that waiting now. Let your spine soften. Let your breath widen. You do not need to accomplish the sacred. You only need to become still enough to notice that it's already here. The bowl did not travel to the moon. The moon came to the bowl. That's how grace works. And tonight, grace is moving toward you, not to change you, not to fix you, but to fill you with what's already yours. Peace, softness, beauty that cannot be spoken. Let yourself receive. The monks would say, place a bowl at the door of your heart and see what the night brings. Do that now. Place the bowl, not with hands, but with attention. You don't need to ask. Don't even need to hope. Just rest. And when the light comes, you'll be ready. You are already the bowl. You are already open. You are already worthy of holding the moon. Sleep now. Let the silver gather. Let the beauty arrive. The next story waits just beyond the breath like moonlight, looking for a place to land, and you are that place. There is a temple deep in the mountains. You will not find it on a map. You cannot ask your way to it. It only reveals itself when the path forgets to be followed. You arrive not by searching, but by stopping, not by direction, but by surrender. You do not remember the journey. You only know you are here now. The stone floor is cool beneath your feet. The air is quiet, but not empty. It is filled with a presence that cannot be named. There are no monks, no chants, no incense. Only one thing, a large bronze bell suspended at the center of the temple. It hangs perfectly still, untouched, as if waiting for something that has already happened. You sit, not because someone told you to, but because the silence invites it. Time softens, thoughts loosen. You forget why you came, and just as your mind begins to fade into something wider, it happens. The bell rings. Clear, soft, perfect. Not loud, but undeniable. It vibrates through your bones like a sound remembered from before birth. You open your eyes. No one is near. No rope moves. No mallet swings. The bell has rung without touch. And in that moment, you are changed. Not by explanation, not by insight, but by the presence of something that does not need your mind to exist. This is the first truth. Not everything that awakens you comes from force. Some things arrive only through stillness. Let that ring through you now. You do not need to be struck to come alive. You do not need to be pushed to become clear. Sometimes the bell rings only when nothing disturbs it. And sometimes, so do you. You do not move. You only listen. The sound of the bell lingers, but it changes as it lingers. It stops being a sound and becomes a space inside your chest that opens without needing to be understood. You realize now, you are not hearing with your ears, you are hearing with your being. This is the second truth. The greatest sounds in life do not arrive from outside. They rise from within when nothing gets in the way. You think of all the times you tried to force answers, all the times you reached for meaning, for clarity, for a sign. But now you understand. The bell did not ring because it was touched. It rang because it was ready. And perhaps so are you. What if what you seek is not something to chase, but something already echoing inside the temple of your own silence? You are not here to accomplish understanding. You are here to become quiet enough to feel its arrival. Let the bell echo in your breath. In, pause. Out, pause. Not controlled, not strained, just noticed. The monks would say, when the bell rings without touch, the listener disappears. And that is what's happening now. You are disappearing, not vanishing, not dying, just softening the edges of what you thought was you. The bell does not say, this is who I am. It just rings. And you do not need to say, this is who I am. You can just be. That is the miracle. To exist without needing definition, to resonate without being wrung. Breathe. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are simply too full of effort, and the effort is what's muffling the echo. So rest now. Let the bell do what it does. Let it ring where words cannot, and you just become the space that receives it. You are not listening to the bell. You are becoming it. Hours pass, or perhaps no time at all. You are still sitting, still breathing, still silent. But something has shifted. Not in the bell, not in the temple. In you. You are no longer waiting, no longer expecting the bell to ring again, because you realize it never stopped. The sound never truly ends. It becomes the silence. It becomes the listening. It becomes you. And now you understand the third truth. Awakening is not an event. It is an echo. one that arises when striving ends and presence begins. You remember moments in your life when the bell rang quietly, moments no one noticed, not even you, until now. A stranger's kindness, a morning light on your pillow, a single tear you didn't have to explain. That was the bell. It was always ringing. You were just too busy to feel it. But now, you feel everything. Not painfully, not overwhelmingly, just clearly, purely. And it isn't heavy, it's freeing. You don't have to be touched to be transformed. You don't have to be seen to be sacred. You don't have to be named to be known by life. Let the bell fade now, not into silence, but into you. Let yourself ring without needing to try. You are not the bell. You are not the listener. You are the space where both meet. You are the echo of everything you've ever surrendered to. The monks would say, some bells are rung by the breath of God. You are such a bell. And so tonight, be that. Not by doing, not by chanting, not by reaching, but by becoming so still that the whole universe rings through you. Sleep now. Let the temple disappear. Let the bell become the dream. Let your breath be the only sound you need to follow. The next story is waiting in the space between this ring and the next. And you are already there. Let go. The bell is still ringing. You are still listening. You are the silence that heard itself. In a small monastery at the edge of a forest, there was a tree, not tall, not famous, not particularly beautiful, just steady. It grew near the outer wall, in a patch of earth where nothing else thrived. The soil was thin, the stones were many, the sun only reached it for a few hours each day. And yet it grew. No one noticed when it first appeared. Perhaps a wind had carried the seed. Perhaps it had waited years beneath the soil before deciding it was safe to rise. The monks walked past it daily, never commenting, never expecting, and the tree never asked for attention. It grew quietly, not because it had something to prove, but because that is what life does when left undisturbed. Its roots pushed slowly into stone, not with force but with patience. Grain by grain, it made room for itself without disturbing the silence. This is the first truth. Real growth is slow, so slow that the world may never applaud it. But it happens, and it is sacred. Let that settle into your breath. You are not stuck, you are growing, even if it's beneath the surface, even if no one sees. Like the tree, your roots are moving through stone, not loudly, not quickly, but faithfully. You do not need to force progress. You only need to trust that something beneath you knows where to go. The monks would say, the bamboo grows beneath the ground for years before it ever breaks the surface. So too, your strength is forming where eyes cannot see. Tonight, you are allowed to stop rushing, stop measuring, stop asking when. You are not late. You are not behind. You are becoming. Let your breath be soil. Let your stillness be rain. Let this story be light, and let yourself grow in silence. Years passed. The tree grew inch by inch, season by season. No one ever saw it move, and yet it changed. Its bark thickened, its branches reached, its leaves learned to whisper with the wind, and in storms, while other trees swayed wildly, this one stood calm, rooted, silent. You might wonder how. How does something remain so peaceful after growing through stone? And the answer is this. It never blamed the stone. It did not resent the hardness. It did not fight the dark. It simply moved around what resisted it, again and again, until one day the resistance was no longer there. Let this be your teaching tonight. You may feel blocked. You may feel pressed in. You may feel like your life isn't moving fast enough. But growth is not always expansion. Sometimes it is deepening. Sometimes the most powerful transformation is invisible, quiet, happening slowly at the roots. You do not need to break the stone. You only need to trust that you can move through it. Not all at once, not today, but slowly, sacredly, with time. The monks would say, the tree does not curse the rock. It thanks the rock for giving its roots something to hold. So too, you can soften around your obstacles, not surrender to them, but find the small space where breath still moves. That's where the roots begin, not in anger, not in fear, but in patience. Let your breath be that space now. Breathe gently into your resistance. Let it know you're not here to fight, you're here to grow. And growth is not an event. It is a practice. One breath at a time, one root at a time, one silent stretch toward the light. You are not stuck. You are steady. And that is enough. One spring morning, a young monk paused beside the tree. He looked up and realized for the first time just how far it had reached. Its branches now spread over the monastery wall, casting dappled shade on the path where students walked each day. Birds had built nests, moss had grown at the base, even wildflowers had gathered beneath it, as if drawn to the calm it carried. And yet the tree had never once looked up and said, "Look what I've become." It did not celebrate. It did not boast. It simply kept being what it was, still, alive, rooted, and that is the final truth. When something grows in silence, it does not need to prove its worth. Its very presence becomes the teaching. You may not see your canopy yet. You may still feel like the seed pushing through stone, but one day you'll look behind you and realize that your patience has bloomed, that your stillness has made shade for others, that your struggle has become someone else's shelter. And it will not feel grand. It will not feel like victory. It will feel natural, unremarkable, sacred, because growth that comes from silence never needs to announce itself. It only needs to keep becoming. Breathe now. Let this be your silence. Let this be your seed. You are allowed to grow slowly. You are allowed to not know where it's leading. You are allowed to trust that even in stillness, something is reaching. The monks would say, the tallest trees do not rush. They listen longer. So listen tonight, not for answers, not for applause, only for the sound of your own becoming. It may feel quiet. It may feel like nothing, but it is enough. You are growing even now, not in noise, not in proof, but in silence. Let go of the timeline. Let go of the measuring. Place your hands on your belly. Feel the slow rhythm. That is life. That is the root. That is you. The tree did not need to understand to become beautiful, and neither do you. Sleep now. Grow now. In the dark. In the deep. In the sacred soil of your own breath. The next story is already stretching toward you like sunlight through leaves. But tonight, be still. Let your roots move in silence. You are becoming, and it is holy. There was a student who had studied for many years. Scriptures, disciplines, practices of posture and breath. But still his mind raced, not in chaos, but in constant motion, like a horse that does not run wild, but never stops circling. He had come to the monastery to seek clarity, and after watching him for some time, his teacher said this, "Come with me, we are going to the lake." The student followed, quietly, uncertain what lesson would wait there. The path was long, the forest thick. But the teacher said nothing. Finally, they reached the water. A small lake, hidden between two hills, calm as breath after a deep sigh. The surface was unbroken, so still that the sky above seemed to rest gently inside it. The teacher said, "Sit, do not try to still your mind. Just sit and look." The student obeyed. He crossed his legs. He placed his hands gently on his knees. He faced the lake. At first, his eyes searched for something, a symbol, a message, a moment of clarity. But the lake gave him nothing, only stillness, only quiet, only sky reflected. And soon he realized, the more he looked, the less he needed to. The lake was not asking anything of him. It was not teaching through effort. It was teaching through being. He watched, and slowly, his breath slowed, his thoughts softened, not by control, but by presence. This is the first truth. The mind, when left alone, becomes water, and in stillness, it reflects the sky. Let that settle into your breath. You do not need to calm your mind. You only need to stop disturbing it. The monks would say, you cannot still the water by touching it, so stop trying to touch. Let your awareness rest like the sky. Let the mind mirror that. You are not here to change the water. You are here to let it clear itself. Like the lake, you already know how. Time passed. The student watched. The water remained still. Clouds moved above, and he watched them appear below. White shapes gliding across the surface like dreams with no urgency. He could not tell where the real sky ended and the reflected one began. And this was the lesson. The teacher finally spoke. When the water is still, you see what was always there. The student looked down. And indeed there was the whole sky, not distorted, not faint, perfectly held in the water's mirror. And yet, if he had stirred the lake, he would have lost it. Not the sky, but the reflection. This is the second truth. You are not asked to find truth. You are asked to become still enough to let it show itself. The sky was always there, but the water needed to be quiet to see it. You may think, I want to know what's real. I want to understand who I am. I want peace. But tonight, you are not asked to understand, only to sit, only to become the stillness that lets clarity arise. Like the student, you do not need to grasp. You only need to stop reaching. The sky does not enter the water. The water becomes empty enough to hold it. So let yourself become empty now, not broken, not erased, just open. Open enough to reflect what was always there. Let your mind be like that lake, wide, patient, present. Let the breath be windless. Let the thoughts settle like silt to the bottom. Let the reflection rise, not from above, but from within. The monks would say, truth has no source. It only appears where silence is strong enough. You do not need to create peace. You are the place it appears when effort is gone. The sun began to lower. Gold touched the surface, and now the lake reflected fire. The student said softly, it keeps changing. The sky changes. The water changes. But something remains. The teacher smiled. Yes, reflection is not permanence. It is presence. You see, the lake does not cling to the sky. It lets it come. It lets it go. Clouds, Sunday, rain, moonlight, stars, all appear and all pass. And still, the lake remains a mirror. That is the third truth. Peace is not holding on. Peace is letting what is move through without grasping. You are not the thoughts. You are not the moods. You are the stillness beneath them. And when you forget that, the water ripples, the sky disappears. But it never leaves. It only waits to be seen again. Let yourself become that mirror now. Do not hold the cloud. Do not chase the sun. Do not argue with the storm. Do not beg the stars to stay. Let it all pass, and let yourself reflect whatever comes without clinging. The monks would say, the still mind does not ask for truth. It becomes a place where truth appears. You are that place, right now. Even here in this breath, even if your thoughts return, even if emotions ripple the water, You can let them settle by not fighting, by not identifying, by not adding more movement to what only needs space to calm. Place your hand over your chest. Feel the rhythm. That is the lake. Feel your breath. That is the wind. Soft now, almost gone. Feel the space inside your ribs. That is the sky. You are the meeting point of all of them, and you do not need to become anything else. You are already the reflection. You are already the water. You are already the truth waiting to be seen. The lake never speaks, and yet it reveals everything. So sleep now. Let the lake hold you. Let the sky settle inside your body. Let clarity rise not as answer, but as silence. The next story waits beyond the surface. But for now, be water. Be sky. Be still. It began with a wind sharp, sudden, carrying the edge of something deeper. The trees shifted first, then the birds, then the clouds. High on the hillside, a monastery sat tucked beneath a forest ridge. Its wooden walls creaked, its prayer flags snapped, and one by one, the monks looked to the sky. The abbot stepped outside. He could smell it in the air, the scent of soaked bark and coming thunder. He turned to the others and said, "Tie down the food, close the windows, light no fire tonight." The young ones ran quickly, carrying cloth, securing tools, bringing cushions in from the courtyard. All moved swiftly, except one. A middle-aged monk, quiet by nature, whose tasks were always done before asked. He was not found tightening ropes or sweeping rain from stone. He was not seen in the kitchen or down in the cellar. Instead, he was asleep, not slumped, not hiding, but lying peacefully in his chamber beneath a folded blanket, his face soft as candlelight. One novice found him, shocked. "Brother," he cried, "the storm is coming." But the sleeping monk only stirred and whispered, "Yes, I know." Then he turned gently and continued to rest, as if nothing at all had changed. This is the first truth. It is possible to remain still even when the sky is not. Let this truth surround you now. You are not required to match the weather. You are not expected to panic with the world. You are allowed to remain where you are, to soften, to rest. Even if thunder walks the rooftops, the monks would say, "You are not the wind, you are the mountain it touches." So breathe now, not to fight the storm, but to remember, you are not it. There is a still place in you, and it does not move just because the world does. The rain began at dusk. It did not ask permission. It came all at once, slamming sideways, sheets of sound against wood and tile. Lanterns flickered. Water poured from the sky as if it had waited lifetimes to fall. Some monks sat upright, backs stiff with alertness. Others whispered sutras beneath their breath. A few pressed hands to walls, as if feeling whether the storm was trying to come through. But the sleeping monk slept on. His breath did not change. Outside his room, a wooden door rocked on its hinges, but it did not slam. Because earlier that day, when the sky was still clear, he had taken time to tie the latch, not out of fear, but out of rhythm. He had sensed the wind would come, as all things come, and so he prepared, but only once. Then he let it go. This is the second truth. Peace is not pretending the storm won't come. It is knowing who you are when it does. The monk did not sleep out of denial. He slept because he had made peace with the fact that storms arrive and storms pass. He trusted the temple because he had built it well, and deeper still he trusted himself, that he did not need to brace every muscle just to survive what would never last. Let this be your remembering now. There is a storm outside, perhaps in the world, perhaps in your body, perhaps in your mind. But you are not the storm. You are the one who can rest inside it. Let your shoulders lower. Let your back soften. Do not try to hold the walls up. They will stand or fall whether you strain or not. And if they fall, you will still be here. You are not your shelter. You are the stillness inside it. The monks would say, if you know where your center is, no wind can throw you. So return now to center, to breath, to the deep knowing that does not rattle. Let the wind dance. Let the rain weep. You may close your eyes. The door is tied. The lamp is low, and your spirit is untouched. By midnight, the storm had reached its full voice. Thunder rolled like ancient drums. Lightning carved itself across the heavens as if the sky were being rewritten. And still the monk slept. The others watched him, not with resentment, but with wonder. How could a man so still hold such peace when the world outside screamed? And yet, that was the lesson. He did not resist the storm. He allowed it to pass through the windows of the world without entering the house of his being. Because long ago, he had built that house from silence, not noise, not explanation, not control. He had sat through many rains, many winds, many losses, and he had learned what all the wise eventually learn. The storm cannot enter what it cannot find. And when you stop identifying with fear, fear loses its door. You become like the sky. The clouds come, the lightning flashes, the noise arrives, but you remain. Let that be your knowing now. The storm may exist, but it is not inside you. You are not fear, you are not chaos, you are the awareness that holds them and lets them pass. The monks would say, even thunder bows to one who does not flinch. So tonight you do not flinch. You do not fight the wind, you do not beg the rain. You simply remain, soft, open, quiet. And in the morning, like all storms, it will be gone. And you still breathing, still whole will rise again. Not because you braced, but because you trusted. Sleep now. The storm is not your burden. The silence is your refuge. You are allowed to rest even when the sky is loud. You are allowed to be calm even when others are not. You are allowed to be the monk who sleeps through the thunder because he knows who he is beneath the sky. The next story will come with the morning wind. But for now, stay where you are, sleep in the storm, and wake untouched. There once was a master who did not like to speak. He taught with gestures, with glances, with pauses longer than most could bear. And when students asked him questions, he often replied by simply pointing. One evening, under a cloudless night, a young student asked, "Master, what is truth?" The master raised his arm and pointed to the moon. The student looked up, and for a moment he saw it not the idea of truth, but its reflection in light, its vastness, its quiet. But the moment passed, and the student looked back at the master's hand. The next morning he returned to that same spot and placed a stone where the master had stood. "This is the sacred place," he said. "This is where the finger pointed." Years passed. More students came, and more stones were added. Eventually, a shrine was built, not for the moon, but for the master's gesture. People began to visit. They bowed not to the sky, but to a bronze statue of a hand, and slowly the moon was forgotten. This is the first truth. When we cling to the finger, we miss the sky. Let that soften you now. The teachings you've heard, the words, the symbols, the rituals, they are not wrong. They are not unholy, but they are only fingers. You are not meant to worship them. You are meant to look where they point. And where they point is not out there. It is not above. It is here, inside, already reflecting, already glowing, already home. One day, a student arrived at the shrine. He was devoted. He prayed long hours at the foot of the statue. He polished the bronze finger each day until it gleamed. He read the old texts, memorized the master's gestures, studied the angle of the wrist, and yet something in him remained restless. Still questions, still longing, still the silent ache that maybe there was more. So he traveled further, searching for a deeper truth. He walked mountains, crossed rivers, sat with other teachers, and finally he found a hut in a valley where silence grew like moss. Inside was a monk with no name, no title, no robe of color. The student bowed and said, "I want to know the truth." The monk looked up and replied, "Then let go of the hand." The student paused, confused. "But I have honored it. I have memorized it. I have followed its shape." The monk smiled and pointed to the moon. Not a word was spoken, and something cracked open inside the student's chest, not like a revelation, more like a remembering, that he had once seen the moon too, before the books, before the rituals, before the shrine. He wept, and the monk said, "You never needed the hand, you only needed the night sky." This is the second truth. The teachings are not the truth. They are invitations, not destinations. You are not asked to carry the statue. You are asked to look up, and sometimes to look in. The moon is not far. It is not distant. It is not hidden. It only waits for you to stop grasping the finger. Let the pointing dissolve now. Let the sky return. Let truth arrive without needing to be named. The student returned to the shrine, but he did not kneel. He stood quietly, watching others bow. He did not interrupt them. He did not argue. He only looked to the moon, because he now knew. Truth does not live in forms. It lives in what the form points to and then releases. He walked past the statue, past the altar, past the scrolls, and stood beneath the open sky. He closed his eyes, not to shut out the world, but to feel what was already inside. And in that silence, he felt something vast. Not new, not loud, just always, the monks would say. If the word does not lead you to silence, it was not the true word. Let that be your breath now. You are not here to repeat phrases. You are not here to perfect posture. You are not here to follow forms like steps to a finish line. You are here to release the finger, to stop searching the hand, and to dwell in what was always behind it. Let go of the map. You are already standing in the country it described. You are already where the moonlight falls. You do not need to point anymore. You only need to notice. Later in life, the student became a teacher, but he never used words. He sat beneath the stars and waited for those who were ready to stop needing answers. Some would ask, "What does it all mean?" And he would look at them gently and then look up. Sometimes they would follow his gaze. Sometimes they would not. But he never explained, because the moon does not explain itself. It only appears when the sky is clear and the eyes are willing. This is the final truth. The master was never the one who pointed. The master was the one who taught you to look. And now you are the one who no longer needs the pointing, because you have become the silence that sees. Let that be your rest tonight. You do not need the statue. You do not need the name. You do not need to reach. You are already standing in the soft light of your own knowing. The moon is here, the night is wide, and the sky is not asking anything from you. Only presence, only quiet, only breath. Let the teachings fall like petals. Let the hand dissolve. Let the sky expand inside your ribs. The monks would say, when the finger disappears, only truth remains. And now you are ready to remain. Sleep now, not in worship, not in study, but in being. The moon does not need belief, only stillness, and you are still enough now to hold it. The next story will arrive without being called, but for now rest beneath the light you no longer chase. You are here, and the sky is full. There was a traveler who had spent years looking for the way out of confusion, out of longing, out of sorrow, out of the endless loops. his mind made in the dark. He walked from teacher to teacher, monastery to monastery, mountain to valley, asking everyone the same question: where is the door? Some gave him riddles, some gave him scrolls, some gave him silence, but none gave him peace. He tried rituals, he tried reason, he tried walking further than any map could follow, and still no door. One night, under a quiet sky, he found himself circling back to a place he had already been, a path he had walked before, a tree he remembered, a stone he had once sat on, and something in him cracked, not like glass but like dawn. He whispered to the night, "I have gone everywhere, and I am still here." And the wind, kind and unsentimental, said nothing. Because that was the answer. This is the first truth. The path that leads out will always return you to yourself. Let this truth soften you now. You do not need another answer. You do not need another search. You are not required to solve yourself tonight. You are only asked to stop walking and listen to what has been inside you the whole time. Let the path end here, and let the gate begin. When the traveler stopped, really stopped, he began to feel something different. Not the cold of failure, not the burn of effort, but space. He sat beneath the tree, not to rest, but to see. And in that stillness, he noticed a sensation, a subtle pressure, a warmth, a stirring behind the ribs, a movement not outward, but inward. His breath slowed, his body softened, and for the first time, he noticed a door, but not on the path, not in the forest, inside, at the center of his chest. Quiet, simple, unmarked. It did not glow, it did not speak, it did not invite, it simply waited, and he realized it had always been there. This is the second truth. The real gate is not found on the path, it is discovered in stillness. You cannot reach it by climbing. You cannot break it open with thought. You can only find it by sinking, by sitting, by softening, by letting the world fall off your shoulders like dust. Let your breath lead you now, not up, not forward, but in, toward the quiet door you carry without knowing. Let your awareness move inward, as if tracing the outline of something sacred, a shape older than memory, a silence deeper than thought. You are close, not to the outside, but to yourself, and that is where the gate begins to open. The traveler closed his eyes, not to block the world, but to allow what lives beneath it to be seen. He sat with the inward gate. He didn't knock. He didn't ask. He just waited, listened, let his breath gather like a quiet wind against the wood, and soon something shifted, not the gate, not the breath, but him. He remembered a moment in childhood when he felt peace for no reason, a moment when the world paused and he felt whole, and he realized the key was never lost. It had always been his willingness to stop grasping, to stop naming, to stop measuring his worth by the distance traveled. The door had no lock, only hesitation. And when he laid down the need to earn his way in, it opened, not outward, but inward still. This is the third truth. The gate opens the moment you stop proving. You are not required to be ready. You are not required to be worthy. You are only asked to stop pushing and start entering. Let that be your breath now. Let the gate open without ceremony, without fear. You do not need to leave your body to enter sacred space. You only need to return to it, right here, right now, in the center of your chest. The door is opening, and you are allowed in. Inside the gate, there was no shrine, no altar, no deity, only a vast space, a room made of presence, a stillness that felt like it had always been waiting to be remembered. The traveler sat, but not as a traveler anymore. He was no longer going anywhere. He had arrived at the place that had never left him, and for the first time, He saw what had been here all along, his breath, his awareness, his being. No more seeking, no more maps, no more waiting for someone else to point the way. He was home, and the room was infinite. No walls, no ceiling, just presence. This is the final truth. The gate that opens inward leads to the sky, not above, not beyond, but inside. You are already in the temple, not because you entered it, but because you stopped leaving. The monks would say, you searched the mountains for what was inside your chest. And now you are resting there. Let the room hold you. Let your inner silence widen like moonlight on a lake. You are not late. You are not broken. You are the one who turned inward and found the sky where your heart used to be. Sleep now, not as escape, but as return. The next story will wait inside the gate, but for now, you are already home. Let go, let it open, and let the sky hold you from within. There was once a student who was very full of questions, full of opinions, full of quotes from books he carried in a heavy pack, as if enlightenment had an index. He had studied deeply, he had memorized proverbs, he had visited 6 temples in 3 months. He spoke quickly, listened rarely, and smiled proudly when others became quiet after he spoke. But still he was restless. So one day, he sought out a very old master, rumored to live at the edge of the mountain. He arrived out of breath, bowed hastily and said, I have studied the sutras, I've debated the scholars, I've sat in silence for days at a time, and yet something is missing. Please teach me. The old master smiled. Of course, he said, but first, tea. They sat together on a cushion beneath a crooked pine. The student continued talking about the teachings he'd gathered. The master brought out 2 cups, then a pot, then a small kettle of warm water. The student, mid-sentence, said, I have read that truth is beyond the mind. Then, of course, some say the mind is the truth. The master nodded and began to pour. Tea filled the student's cup, then reached the rim, then rose above it, and spilled silently onto the mat. The student blinked, but the master kept pouring. The cup overflowed. The tea dripped into the grass. The kettle emptied. The student gasped. Master, you've spilled it. The cup is full. The old man smiled gently and said, Exactly. How can I pour anything into a cup that's already full? This is the first truth. Wisdom cannot enter where opinion refuses to leave. Let that truth settle into your breath now. You too may be full tonight. Full of noise, full of thought, full of yesterday's story and tomorrow's worry. But now, you are invited to empty. Not to erase, not to abandon yourself, just to make space. You are not the cup. You are the space it holds. And space is where truth begins. The student stared at the tea on the ground, still confused, still thinking. But what does it mean? He asked. Should I unlearn everything? Forget what I know? Abandon study? The master chuckled, a sound like leaves turning over. No, no, only stop drinking while you're still pouring. The student blinked. I don't understand. Exactly, the master replied. Now you're learning. The student frowned, but he was listening. So the master poured another cup, this time carefully, just enough to fill it. Then he stopped. He gestured toward the cup. Now it can be received. Now it can be sipped. The student leaned forward, took the cup, brought it to his lips, and the tea was simple, warm, exactly what it needed to be. Nothing more. This is the second truth. The mind is not a problem. Only the pouring is. You are not broken because you think. You are not failing because you have knowledge. But when the pouring never stops, when the inner commentary runs on and on, you miss the taste of your own life. Let that be your breath now. You do not need to stop thought. You only need to pause the pouring. Set the kettle down. Let the cup be what it is. Let it hold what's already inside. And sip. Not everything is meant to be figured out. Some truths are meant to be tasted in silence. Let the tea settle. Let your mind become a cup again. Later that evening, the student returned to his cushion after a walk in the woods. He still didn't have answers, but he noticed something else. A kind of quiet where questions used to buzz. He sat with the master again. This time he said nothing. The master poured tea, and together they drank without words. Steam rose between them like unspoken understanding, and slowly the student saw it. It wasn't about the tea. It wasn't about the cup. It was about the space beneath it all. That every time he tried to explain the experience, he left the experience. That sometimes the lesson wasn't in what was said, but in what was felt between the sips. This is the third truth. Clarity does not arrive with more ideas. It appears when we stop adding. The monks would say, even the best tea becomes bitter if you keep steeping it. Let that be your breath now. There is nothing more to think through, nothing more to grasp. Let the tea rest in your chest. Let the mind release the kettle. You are not asked to solve anything, only to taste what's already here. Let your awareness settle to the bottom of the cup. There in the quiet sediment, truth rests, and it does not speak. It just warms you. The student stayed at the monastery for many weeks, but he never asked another question. Instead, he learned to empty. Each morning, he'd sweep the leaves not to finish a task, but to clear space in his mind. He'd sit by the tea table with no need to be wise, and find that silence did most of the talking. One day, he looked into his empty cup, and it glowed with late afternoon light. There was nothing inside it, and yet he felt full. That is the final truth. The mind, when emptied, becomes luminous. It reflects the world without distortion. It receives without resistance. It becomes a mirror for something sacred. You do not need to be brilliant. You do not need to be correct. You only need to be present and clear. Let the cup in your chest empty now. Let the steam rise. Let the chatter fade. Let all the knowledge dissolve into breath. You are not here to be impressive. You are here to be still enough to receive something real, and when you do, you will not need to explain it. You will simply smile, as the Master did, and pour only when asked. Sleep now. Let the cup rest on the table of your breath. Let the steam rise through your dreams. There is no more pouring tonight. Only tasting, only being, only space. The next story will arrive when the cup is ready again. But for now, you are full by being empty, and that is enough. There is a flame that lives in the center of the monastery. It is not fed by oil or wick, but by something older, by silence, by surrender, by the quiet understanding that all things must pass. The monks do not worship it. They do not name it, but they sit beside it like one sits beside a dying elder, with reverence, with grief, with awe. It does not blaze, it does not cry. It simply gives light by slowly ceasing to be. You have seen such a flame before, not just in candles, but in yourself. In the moment, you let go of something you had clung to for too long. In the moment, you released control and found peace on the other side of helplessness. In the moment, you surrendered not out of defeat, but because you knew to hold on any longer would cost your soul. This is the first truth. The flame gives light by giving itself away. Not all at once, not violently, but slowly like breath turning to wind, like ice turning to river. The monks say the flame teaches the way of life. You must disappear to become visible. You must be nothing to become light. And so tonight, as you lay here, with the hum of thoughts still flickering in your mind, you are invited to sit beside that sacred fire, not to change it, not to protect it, only to witness it. You, too, are burning, not in pain, but in becoming. The version of you that survived today, that made it here, that carried grief in your chest and still showed up, that version is already dissolving. The breath you're taking now is not the breath you took before. The self you held tightly to is already softening. This is not something to fear. This is the path. You were never meant to stay the same. You were never meant to remain unburned. You were meant to be warmed and consumed and transfigured by the holy fire of your own surrender. There is nothing wrong with change. There is only the fear of it. But the flame fears nothing. It does not argue with its own vanishing. It does not resist its own release. And in that silent courage, it becomes what we all seek: light. Not the harsh light of scrutiny, but the gentle light of understanding, the kind of light that enters through the cracks and makes even the broken beautiful. So breathe now, and let your breath be the smoke rising. Let your chest soften like wax warmed by truth. Let your identity drip away slowly, not lost, but melted into something clearer. There is no need to protect yourself from transformation. You are not dying. You are glowing. And tomorrow, if something of you is gone, some weight, some fear, some mask, thank the flame. It took only what you were ready to lose. Let your mind bow in stillness. Let your body bow in breath. You are sacred. You are dissolving into something holy. And the room around you, it is beginning to glow with your quiet offering. Let that be enough. Let the fire keep teaching. Let yourself keep softening. Let the story pause here in this moment between breath and flame, and in the next part, we will follow it deeper into the center of the burn. The monks once told a story about a traveler who feared all forms of change. He feared the death of his name, the loss of his youth, the fading of people he loved. He feared wrinkles. He feared silence. He feared the empty space between what was and what would be. But above all, he feared the flame. He would not sit near it. He would not watch it. He said it made him feel as if something in him was being undone. And perhaps that was true. One day, an elder monk invited him to stay for tea, and as the water boiled, he placed a single candle between them. The traveler shifted uncomfortably. "Why must it be here?" he asked. "Can we not speak in daylight?" The monk replied, "Some truths require darkness, and some truths only speak when something else is vanishing." The flame flickered. Its shadow danced along the wooden floor. Its light made no sound, yet it told the whole story of the world. The monk poured tea. The traveler watched the steam curl into the air, the way all things do when they are no longer solid. The monk said, "You fear the flame because you think it kills, but it does not kill. It reveals, it unwraps, it sets free." And then, gently, "You think you are the wax, but you are the heat." The traveler sat in silence. He did not understand, but he felt something shift. That night, he returned to his room, and for the first time, he lit a candle beside his bed. He watched it for hours, and though he lost sleep, he found something else: the courage to let go of what he could not hold forever. This is the second truth. What you cling to becomes heavier, but what you offer to the flame becomes light. You have carried so much: old stories, unfinished conversations, the fear of being left behind, the pressure to keep being the person you were before the fire came. But now, you are allowed to place those burdens beside you, to hold them out to the night like a match to the wick and say, "I do not need to keep everything to be everything." Let that be your breath now. Let this moment become a small fire in the center of your life, not a blaze, but a still flame, one that does not consume violently but transforms gently. Feel the warmth on your chest, the low glow behind your eyes, the soft surrender in your ribs as your body agrees to stop gripping what was never meant to stay. Even identity, Even pride, even memory, they are not lost when given to the flame. They are honored. They become light for someone else's path. Let this be your offering, not because you are told to, but because it is time. There is no shame in change. There is only the sacredness of becoming something new. Sleep is a kind of fire, too. It burns away the day. It consumes the sharp edges of thought. It dissolves the illusion of control. And in its place, dream, renewal, clarity. Let it happen. You do not have to know what you are becoming. You only have to trust that the fire knows how to carry you from one form to the next without ever forgetting your soul. This is your second candle now, placed gently at your feet, and it waits not to destroy you, but to show you how luminous you already are. When a flame goes out, there is no sound, no scream, no crash, no closing hymn. Only the soft curl of smoke rising like a final breath returned to the stars. And yet, what remains is everything. The room remembers it was lit. The faces remember they were seen. The soul remembers it was warmed without being asked to perform. This is the quiet miracle of the flame. It does not stay, but it leaves something behind that never truly leaves. Tonight, as you rest, you may feel like you are melting, dripping down into sleep, into silence, into a soft kind of nothing. But nothing is not emptiness. Nothing is where the sacred enters. Where control leaves, truth begins. Where you let go, life begins again without resistance. You are not losing yourself. You are letting the fire do what it was always meant to do, not destroy but reveal. And what it reveals is not some higher version of you, some future peak to reach, but the truth you forgot while trying so hard to stay solid. You were never meant to be a statue. You were never meant to stay unchanged. You were born as breath, as spirit, as wind through candlelight. Let yourself return to that. There is a Zen teaching. When the candle goes out, only then does the room begin to shine. And that shine is not your doing. It is your being. The people you've touched without realizing, the words you've spoken that echoed quietly in someone else's life. The love you gave that returned years later as someone's healing. All of it remains. The wax melts, the wick fades, the flame disappears, but the warmth lingers. This is the third truth. The self is temporary, but the light you become when you let go of self is eternal. The monks knew this. That's why they never clung to titles, to names, to anything carved in stone. They bowed to fire, to water, to the breath, to what disappears and returns in the next form. And you are part of that return. What you've lost was not the end. It was the opening. What you fear to let go of is not your anchor, it is your shadow. And the light you carry is waiting to emerge on the other side. So tonight, let the fire do its quiet work. Let it soften your bones. Let it melt the edge of your thoughts. Let it dissolve the mask that says you must always be strong, always be certain, always be someone. Let it all go. Breathe. Sleep not as someone falling into darkness, but as a flame becoming silence. And in the morning, when your eyes open, you will not be new. You will be true. And truth is not something you must hold. It is something that holds you. So rest now. You are already light. You are already whole. And the fire has already given you its final gift. Stillness. A glow with no source. A peace with no condition. A warmth that belongs to you and to everything you touch without knowing. The flame consumed itself, but it left a path behind. And you are walking it now, with eyes closed, with breath soft, with nothing left to hold. Sleep, dear one. You are not disappearing. You are becoming clear. Let go. Let the flame vanish. And let the light remain. There was a master who wrote no sutras. He owned no scrolls, spoke no sermons, and carried no beads around his wrist. His students asked him, "How will we remember your teachings if you do not speak?" And he smiled. "What you can remember is not what I am teaching." So they sat with him day after day beneath the mountain pines, beneath the evening stars, beneath the low thatched roof of a temple that barely stood. And still, he said nothing. No quotes, no instructions, no words to write down or recite back. Only presence, only breath, only the wind passing between leaves and ribs. Until one day, a student broke. He stood up, furious. "Why are you hiding the truth?" he shouted. "Why won't you just say it?" The master only bowed, then pointed not to the sky, not to the ground, but to the space in between. That is the teaching. The silence between things, the space between questions and answers, the moment when thought exhales and becomes still. You have read much, you have tried hard, you have collected wisdom like pebbles in a bowl. But there is something deeper than knowing, something wider than answers. It lives between the sutras. It lives beneath your name. It lives in the pause you are taking right now to breathe. This is the first truth. Silence is not the absence of meaning, it is the presence of what words cannot carry. The masters call it the space between the bell and the echo, the breath between the lines of a chant, the hush before the snow falls, the sound the moon makes when no one is listening. It is here now, in the air between these lines, in the space between your thoughts, in the distance between heartbeats. Let yourself rest in that space, not as a task, not as a technique, but as a return. You were never meant to carry so many conclusions. You were never meant to memorize your way to peace. You were meant to sit like a bowl left open in a quiet room, waiting, soft, unwritten. Let the silence speak to you. It will say things your mind has no language for. It will reveal what the sutras could only hint at. It will hold you when the teachings are gone and all that remains is breath. In the old monasteries they say, a true student does not repeat the words, they repeat the space between them, the breath that holds the teaching, the pause before the bow, the stillness before the bell is rung, because even a sutra perfect, holy, ancient, is only ink, only shape pressed onto silence. It is the silence underneath that gives it power. You do not fall asleep because you understand the day. You fall asleep because you are finally allowed to stop repeating it. You do not heal because you figured it out. You heal because you finally sat still enough for the ache to dissolve into space. And so it is with truth. The wisest master you will ever meet sits in the center of your chest and says nothing. No parable, no quote, no voice, only presence. Only the quiet echo of your own breath reminding you, you are already home, the novice chants to remember. The master listens to the silence that holds the chant, and you, dear one, are somewhere in between. Not because you are lacking, but because you are arriving, not to the next teaching, but to the breath you forgot to follow. Tonight, there is no sutra to study, no lesson to master, only this, the sound of your inhale, the surrender of your exhale, the emptiness in between that feels like floating. Let your ribs become the scroll. Let the wind in your lungs be the scripture. Let your silence become the temple. There is a story of a monk who spent 30 years memorizing the sacred texts. He could recite them from memory, every syllable, every punctuation, even the margin notes. And yet one evening, as he walked past an old nun sweeping the temple stones, he heard her hum a single breath. Not a chant, not a mantra, just a sound. Soft, empty, honest. And in that sound, the monk heard something he had never found in the pages. He wept. He fell to his knees and forgot every line. Because sometimes you must unlearn the words to hear the wisdom beneath them. The second truth is this. The most sacred sound is not spoken, it is received. And receiving requires nothing, not understanding, not grasping, only stillness. Stillness so wide that it becomes listening, listening so deep that it becomes knowing, knowing so silent that it becomes peace. Breathe now, not as a technique, but as reverence. Let each breath be a bow to the invisible sutra unfolding inside you. You are not late to the temple. You are not lost in the scroll. You are where all the teachings point. You are where the silence begins. Let it speak to you now, without sound, without reason, without pressure. Let your body be the bell. Let your exhale be the echo. Let your stillness be the answer to every question you no longer need to ask. There is nothing more to seek tonight, only to sink into the breath that has been waiting for you since before your name. Some say the bell only rings when struck, but in the temples hidden far from roads, monks will tell you the bell was already ringing long before the hand reached it. Its echo was waiting not for impact, but for a listener. So too with truth. It is not born when it is spoken. It is not alive only in the moment of teaching. It hums beneath everything. It sings in the marrow. It vibrates inside silence like starlight inside a cave. And if you are still enough, if your breath slows to the pace of moonlight, you will hear it too. Not in the words, but in what the words leave behind. Let tonight be a return to what you always knew before you were taught to know. Let it be a return to that place where wisdom grows wild and unspoken, a place where you are not asked to do or be or fix, only to dissolve. And as you dissolve, so too does the idea that silence is empty. It is not empty, it is full. So full it spills over the rim of your thoughts and flows into your body like sacred wind. The third truth is this: silence is not what follows the sutra. It is what gives the sutra meaning. It is the bowl beneath the offering. It is the sky beneath the moon. It is the breath between every note of a chant, the part no one sings, yet everyone needs. The old master knew this. He once told a student who begged for his final teaching, "I will give it to you, but only if you can hold it with an empty hand." The student waited, but the master never spoke. He only looked, with eyes that held every scripture and none at all. Years later, the student wrote nothing, but he became a monk, and he passed on no sutra, only a presence so vast it made others forget their questions. That was enough. Tonight, dear one, you are that student, you are that echo, you are that space where words dissolve. You are allowed now to stop chasing teachings. You are allowed now to become one. The sacred is not distant. It is not locked in scrolls. It is here, in your breath, in the beat of your heart, in the way your chest rises without permission and falls again into stillness. There is nothing left to learn tonight, only to listen to what is already humming in the soft dark. Let your body become the sutra. Let your dreams become the ink. Let silence write its final message in the temple of your ribs, not with words, but with warmth, not with knowing, but with presence. And when you sleep, may you be carried by that silent echo, the one that asks for nothing but stillness, the one that sings not in sound but in surrender, the one that stays long after the master is gone, long after the page is turned, long after the bell is silent. The one that never needed words to teach you who you already are. You are sacred. You are enough. You are home. Sleep now. The silence is still speaking. The story begins simply, as most truths do. An old Zen master woke before sunrise each morning. He walked the monastery path with the same slow grace as the moon leaving the sky. He greeted the sparrows. He bowed to the mist. He poured tea as though each drop carried its own teaching. But one morning, something was different. He walked with a limp, just slightly, just enough to notice. One foot slower than the other, one step less certain. The students whispered, "Is he ill? Is this a test?" Is this the beginning of his farewell? But the master said nothing. He kept walking. He kept limping. Day after day, he still taught in the garden, still knelt to sweep the floor, still tended to the bonsai as if each branch had its own breath. But the limp remained. Until one morning, without warning, he sat beneath the Bodhi tree, took off his sandal and reached inside. From it, he pulled a stone, small, grey, harmless looking. He turned it in his palm like a relic, then smiled, not because the stone was sacred, but because it was not. Just a pebble, just a mistake, just something that slipped in without his knowing and stayed because he never stopped to check. The limp disappeared by evening, and the monastery laughed not at him, but at themselves, because each one of them, in their own quiet way, was walking with their own unnoticed stone. You too have walked like this, not always limping on the outside, but somewhere behind the ribs, between the thoughts, inside the breath, a quiet discomfort. Maybe it's a thought you keep stepping on. Maybe it's an old story still stuck beneath the surface. Maybe it's a tension in your chest you've grown used to, but never asked why it's there. And maybe, like the master, you've assumed this ache was just part of the path, a condition of being alive, a tax for walking the human road. But what if it's not? What if the thing you've been limping with isn't your burden to carry, but your cue to pause? What if healing is not always about adding something new, but removing something small, unseen, but quietly sharp? Let tonight be that pause. No need to dig, no need to fix, just to sit and check the shoe, just to wonder, is there something here that doesn't belong? And if there is, just take it out, gently, without blame, without drama. You don't need to name it. You don't need to explain it. You only need to feel what it's like to walk without it. That is the first truth. Most suffering doesn't shout. It stays small until we listen. Let your body listen now, not with effort, but with curiosity, with relief. Because relief doesn't always come with thunder. Sometimes it comes with the sound of a single pebble hitting the ground. And sometimes that's enough. There are aches you've learned to live with, tightness behind the eyes, weight in the shoulders, a thought that returns like a dripping faucet just before sleep. Not pain loud enough to scream, not wounds dramatic enough to name, just small things, little sharpnesses, like the stone in the master's shoe. You learn to step around them, to change your posture, to call it normal, to call it just how life is. But survival is not the same as peace, and coping is not the same as healing. There is a kind of quiet suffering that does not demand attention. It hides behind tolerance. You tolerate the way people speak to you. You tolerate the way you speak to yourself. You tolerate pressure, expectation, noise, until the nervous system forgets what it feels like to rest. But tonight, you do not need to tolerate anything. Tonight, you do not need to hold your breath through another discomfort just because it's familiar. Instead, you are invited to notice what doesn't belong, to notice what has stayed only because it went unquestioned. Like the stone in the shoe, some things never needed to be carried as long as they have. A thought that says, I'm not enough. A memory you still wear like armor. A rule someone once taught you about who you had to be loved. What if those things were not truths but pebbles? And what if tonight is the first night you stop walking with them? Not because you are broken, but because you are paying attention to the small voice inside you that says, this doesn't feel right. There is sacredness in that voice. The monks call it the whisper of awakening, not the lightning flash, not the cosmic vision, just the small human moment when you admit to yourself, this hurts, and maybe it doesn't have to. Sometimes that is the entire path, that one sentence, that one check of the shoe. And sometimes, when the stone is gone, there's a strange feeling left behind. Not relief, not joy, but confusion. You've grown used to walking with the limp. You've patterned yourself around the pain, and when it's gone, you almost miss it, because now you're just walking, without a reason to struggle, without something to fix, and that can feel empty. But not all emptiness is loss. Some is spaciousness. Some is the return of breath to a room that forgot it could breathe. This is the second truth. Relief is unfamiliar at first, but it is your original rhythm. You were not made to walk with sorrow in your shoe. You were not born to hold someone else's sharpness in your step. You were made to feel the ground without flinching, to breathe without bracing, to move without apology. So, let tonight be a loosening. Let yourself lie here and slowly realize you don't have to hurt just to feel alive. You don't have to limp just to remember you're walking. You don't have to repeat what someone else dropped into your path years ago. Take it out. Even if you don't know what it is, even if it has no name, even if all you do is imagine your foot free. And that imagination, that choice to rest, is already enough to begin again. The body knows. It remembers the difference between coping and comfort. And the soul sighs like a monk who finally sat down after walking too far without looking inside his shoe. You may not feel it all at once, but sleep will help, and silence will do the rest. Let go. The burden is not yours. The stone was never meant to teach you anything but this. You are allowed to feel good for no reason at all. The old master didn't limp anymore. He walked barefoot that evening, not out of ritual, but out of joy. He said the earth felt different when the burden was gone. He said, "We do not realize how heavy small things are until we stop pretending they are light." And so he walked, softly, slowly, deliberately, each step a celebration of emptiness. You don't have to be a monk to understand this. You only need to recall what it feels like to let go of one thing that's been pressing too long. Even the slightest shift, loosening your jaw, sighing without control, adjusting your spine as you lie in the dark, can open a door you forgot was closed. There is no grand temple tonight, no fire in the sky, no sermon echoing from the mountaintop. Just this moment, just this breath, just the subtle miracle of realizing you don't have to suffer when you are willing to notice what no longer belongs. And when you begin to move without that old ache, you may feel something strange, a lightness where once there was pressure, a peace where once there was posture. It will not shout, it will not prove itself, it will not demand applause, but it will stay. It will rise with you in the morning, as you pour water into your hands, as you greet your reflection without the old stories in your eyes, as you walk with the rhythm of someone who does not need to perform resilience. This is the third truth. Suffering is not always the teacher. Sometimes it's just a stone you forgot to remove. And freedom is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a barefoot step on warm earth that no longer hurts. Tonight, let your mind become that foot. Let your body become that path. Let your soul be the place where pressure ends. You may not remember what the stone was. You may not need to. The body has a sacred forgetting that makes room for healing. And the spirit knows when it is no longer bracing. You are safe now. You are walking again, even if you are lying still. You are lighter now, even if the world has not changed. Sleep like a master with no lesson left to give. Sleep like a monk with no limp. Sleep like the earth forgives every step and welcomes your weight without resistance. Tomorrow may bring its own pebbles, its own small thorns, its own quiet irritations. But tonight, you are free. And now, there is only the breath, the bed, the silence, and the echo of a master's footsteps, soft, whole, unburdened. Sleep well, dear one. You've walked far enough with that stone. There is a grove of bamboo that grows just beyond the monastery walls. It is not tall out of pride. It is not green out of vanity. It simply grows as it has always grown, quiet, patient, unconcerned with the world beyond the breeze. Each stalk rises slender and straight, yet it is not the straightness that makes it endure. It is the way it bows. When the storm arrives, as it always does, the bamboo does not resist. It bends. It lowers its head without fear, without protest, without the need to prove that it is strong. And when the wind passes, as it always does, the bamboo is still standing, not because it fought the wind, but because it never tried to. This is the story the old monks tell when someone comes to them carrying too much tension, too much need to control, too much resistance to the unpredictable wind of life. You, too, have felt the wind. Winds of change, winds of heartbreak, winds of confusion and loss, winds that arrive without warning and demand nothing but your surrender. But the world taught you otherwise, to brace, to harden, to fight back against whatever bends you. And yet, here you are, tired, not just from the wind, but from the effort of staying rigid in its presence. Tonight, the bamboo speaks, not in words, but in the language of movement, of softness, of letting go without giving in. Let yourself feel what it means to be strong without being hard, to be safe without being closed, to be whole while bowing to something greater than control. There is a moment, right before sleep, when the body no longer holds itself upright, when the mind lets go of the reins, when the breath becomes wind passing through an open grove with nothing to push against. Let this moment be that moment. Let yourself bow, not in defeat, but in trust. Trust that what bends does not break. Trust that surrender is not the absence of strength, but its quiet proof. Let your shoulders fall. Let your thoughts unfurl. Let the tension go like leaves loosening in autumn wind. There is no need to carry the world into your sleep. The wind will carry it without you. It always has. Tonight, you are the bamboo. You are not here to hold back the storm. You are here to survive it by not resisting it. This is the first truth. What you resist persists, but what you allow moves through you like air. There is a kind of softness that only the wise possess, the softness of someone who has wept without shame, who has let go without being broken, who has bowed without losing their dignity. That softness is yours now. You do not need to earn it. You only need to remember how to stop holding what was never yours to carry. The old master once said, "The bamboo does not fear the wind, because it does not fear moving." And so tonight, let yourself move, not in action but in release. Let your breath sway through the forest of your ribs. Let your spine unwind like a tree no longer resisting gravity. Let your mind flutter like a leaf unhooked from the branch of needing to know. This is the second truth. Nothing needs to be solved tonight, only softened. Let the storm blow past. Let it find no resistance in you. Let your body be a place where wind becomes breath, and breath becomes peace. You are not here to control the night. You are here to be changed by it gently, as the moon changes the tide without ever touching the water, as the wind sculpts the mountain without ever lifting a stone, as silence changes the heart without ever raising its voice. You are being shaped, not by struggle but by surrender. Let that be enough. Sleep now, like bamboo in wind, flexible, strong, alive, and still standing in the morning. You are safe. The storm has already passed, and you are still here. There is a breath inside you that did not begin with you. It moved through your mother when she carried her quiet hopes beneath her ribs. It moved through your grandfather as he worked with tired hands, but still whispered prayers to no one in particular. It moved through the lungs of a nameless monk in a distant land as he bowed in the pre-dawn mist, lifting incense toward an unseen sky. This breath, this simple, sacred inhale, has traveled farther than your memory, and now it lives in you. You are not breathing alone tonight. Even as you lie still in the quiet of your room, wrapped in blankets that hold no history, you are carried by something ancient, not in a mystical way, not in metaphor, but in the plain, sacred truth. Every breath is a continuation. Your lungs are lanterns lit by generations, each inhale a thread that connects you to someone who once knelt in silence, who once cried in war, who once laughed beneath a sky that looked just like yours. You carry them, and they carry you. So if you are tired tonight, if you feel alone, if you wonder whether you are strong enough to face what waits in the morning, know this: you are not the beginning, and you are not the end. You are the bridge. You are the point where ancient wisdom becomes living breath. Let that be your comfort. You do not have to invent peace. You do not have to force stillness. You are not responsible for creating light out of the dark. You are only asked to remember that others have walked this road. Others have laid down just like this, full of questions, full of ache, full of longing for peace. And they made it. They passed their breath on to you, and now it is your turn to breathe it forward, not with effort, not with performance, but with presence. Let your next inhale be a silent bow to all who exhaled before you. Let the rhythm in your chest become a soft chant without sound. You are being held by 1,000 unseen hands. You are being watched over by voices that no longer speak but still echo in your breath. This is the first truth. Belonging is not something you find. It is something you remember. And tonight, as you rest, you remember, you are not alone in the quiet. You are a continuation of love older than your name. You are the breath of the ancients. There were moments in your childhood when you didn't know how to go on, but somehow you did. Not because someone told you how, not because you understood, but because something unseen carried you. A stillness between the noise, a presence beneath the confusion, a breath that was not just yours. Maybe it came when you cried in the dark. Maybe it was there when no one understood you. Maybe it whispered through your chest while you stared at the ceiling, not knowing why life felt so heavy so soon. That breath did not come from your own strength. It came from farther back, from someone who had survived their own silence, their own weight, and passed on the capacity to endure. You inherited more than blood. You inherited resilience. You were gifted a sacred pattern of continuation. Someone before you was held by someone before them, and now that thread runs through your chest gently, invisibly, like wind over tall grass at midnight. Let yourself feel it now. Let the weight of your aloneness become porous. There is more space in you than pain. You are a living scroll of untold prayers, unspoken names, and unbroken strength. The monks say, "The river does not forget its source even when it flows far." And you have not forgotten, not truly. You are remembering now what it feels like to rest into the breath that watched over you before you knew to ask for help. The warmth you longed for as a child, it is here now. In this moment, in this breath, in this blanket, in this whisper of stillness that covers you like soft snow over a weary roof. This is the second truth. You do not need to earn support. It is already flowing through you. You are allowed to close your eyes without finishing the story. You are allowed to sleep without solving the mystery. You are allowed to breathe without pretending to be okay, because the breath itself is okay. It is wise. It is ancient. It knows how to carry you when you forget how to walk. Sleep now, as the child of all who made it through. Sleep, and let them surround you. You are home in their arms, even if the room is silent. You may wonder what becomes of you when this life ends, Where does the breath go? Where do the moments go? Where does the love go? The answer is not in the sky, not in scriptures, not in distant realms of fire or light. The answer is in the next breath, the one someone else takes when your body is still, the one that moves through a grandchild or a stranger, or a wind-touched tree that never knew your name but still bows, because you once bowed too. Nothing ends here. Not the kindness, not the presence, not the knowing. You are not a closed circle. You are an opening. The way you listen now will echo through the next soul who needs to be heard. The way you forgive yourself tonight will plant a seed in someone who doesn't know yet that forgiveness is allowed. The stillness you find now will ripple across time, not loudly, but eternally. You are not breathing for yourself alone. You are breathing for those who will need you long after your body sleeps for the final time. This is the third truth. Peace is inherited, but also passed down. Let the breath become your offering. Let the stillness become your teaching. Let the warmth of this moment become a quiet blessing to someone you may never meet, but who will one day cry in the same way you once did, and need this breath to carry them home. You are part of that. You are not the whole story, but your sentence matters. So rest now, as the breath continues, not only through your lungs, but through the world. You are not a single flame. You are the fire lit from 1,000 lamps and passed to 1,000 more. Sleep, and let the breath continue. Sleep, and let the lineage live on. Sleep, and know you are never alone. The Master had not wept in years. He had watched disciples come and go, watched seasons peel the paint from the temple walls, watched illness and death like passing clouds. He had eaten in silence, prayed in silence, taught in silence, and when sorrow came to others, he sat beside it like a stone. They called him enlightened, they called him wise. They said his heart had transcended the storm, but no one knew what he carried, not even him. Until that morning, the sun had not fully risen. Mist clung to the monastery roof like breath on glass. The world was quiet, as if holding its inhale, and then a sound. A bird, hidden in the grove of plum trees, sang, not with beauty, but with truth, a high, piercing tone that cut through the silence like a memory returning after a long exile. The Master paused, then trembled, then fell to his knees on the stone path, and he wept. Not a single tear, but all the ones he had not cried for decades, for the child he had been, for the mother he had lost, for the students who sat beside him, believing he felt nothing. The morning wind did not interrupt. The bamboo did not turn. Even the temple bell held its tongue. The Master wept because the bird had reminded him of something he had once known. That awakening is not an escape from feeling. It is the willingness to feel fully without fear. You may be afraid of your tears. You may think they make you weak. You may believe that calm means never trembling. But listen, the one who trembles while staying present is stronger than the one who hardens and turns away. The one who breaks open is closer to wholeness than the one who stays sealed. And you, lying here tonight, with feelings you don't know where to place, you are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply ready. Ready to stop swallowing the tide. Ready to let something rise. Ready to allow emotion without shame. The Master had taught many sutras, but in that moment, as tears fell onto stone, he remembered his first teacher's words. When the heart can hold all things, it spills over, and that spilling is compassion. So tonight, if the tears come, let them. They are not regression. They are not failure. They are your return. Return to softness, return to humanness, return to the part of you that does not need to explain why it aches. You do not need to be silent, you do not need to be still. You only need to be honest with yourself, with your heart, with the breath that shakes before it settles. Let the bird sing through you. Let the morning rise inside your chest. Let the old dam crack without apology, because in that breaking a gate opens, and through that gate comes the deepest form of awakening, the knowing that nothing human is separate from the sacred. The monks will not shame you. The sky will not turn away. The candle on your shelf will still burn for you, even if your tears threaten to drown it. Let yourself feel. Let yourself fall into the arms of this moment, and know you are not weaker for weeping. You are wiser. You are more real. You are closer to the heart that has been waiting to beat again. There is no rule that says peace must be quiet. There is no law that says enlightenment must be dry. Even the Buddha touched the earth and cried. Even the wind bows before the sound of truth. And what is more true than the tear that finally falls when you stop trying to hold the sky together? Tonight, you do not need to be the sky. You can be the rain, soft, honest, healing. Let it fall. Let it wash you. Let it sing like the bird at dawn. The master never wept until he remembered what it meant to feel. And when he did not turn away. He bowed deeper. He thanked the bird. And when the sun rose, his face was wet but peaceful. So sleep now, with no pressure to be strong. Sleep like the master after the first tear. Sleep like the bird who never needed to understand why it sang. Sleep as you are. Tears or no tears, you are whole. You are human. You are loved. And the morning will come gently. The temple sat quiet, wrapped in the folds of a low mountain, its stones worn smooth by years of bare feet and morning mist. The monks moved in silence, tending to their chores with the grace of wind touching leaves. Every motion was deliberate, every step a prayer, and every thought filtered through years of study, practice, and letting go. It had been centuries, they said, since someone arrived who already knew the truth before it was taught. Until one day, a child appeared at the temple door. She could not have been more than 7. Her robes were not robes, just a loose cloth tied crookedly around her shoulders. Her shoes were lost long ago. Her hands were empty, but her eyes carried the sky. She did not bow when she entered. She did not speak. She simply looked around, smiled, and sat down beside the old incense burner, as if she had been there forever. The monks were puzzled. Some believed she was lost. Others believed she was sent by a teacher. But none could explain the peace that settled into the temple the moment she crossed the threshold. One by one they tested her. A scholar monk asked her, "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" She responded by gently brushing his face with her small fingers, as if dusting sadness from his skin. A Zen master asked her, "What were you before your grandparents were born?" She stared at the mountain and whispered, "A rock listening to the wind." A gardener offered her tea and asked what she thought of enlightenment. She smiled, took the cup in both hands and said, "This is warm." No answers, only presence, no teachings, only truth. The monks gathered and debated whether to keep her, but when they returned to the courtyard, she had already swept the steps, not because anyone asked her, but because they were dirty, and her feet liked clean places. From that day forward, she lived among them. She did not study, she did not pray, she did not chant. But when she walked by, even the old master felt his mind grow quiet, because in her was something they had all forgotten. The mind before knowing, the heart before fear, the life before it had a name. The child reminded them of when they had first arrived, long ago, before they began collecting teachings, before they searched for meaning, before they thought they had to become something, and in her silence they remembered. The path is not something you walk. It's something you let fall away beneath your feet. The child never asked the names of sutras. She named birds instead. She gave rocks personalities. She thanked trees for shade. and apologized to ants when she stepped near them. When monks fell ill, she sat beside them and said nothing. But somehow, they always felt better. She did not heal with wisdom. She healed with being. She did not need to forgive anyone, because she had not yet learned how to judge. You too were once like this, before the labels, before the striving, before the heavy cloak of needing to prove yourself. You were a child at the temple door, looking up at the world without needing to explain it. Maybe no one welcomed you in. Maybe you learned too soon how to hide your wonder and dress it in understanding. Maybe you've spent your whole life trying to earn your way back to a moment you can't quite remember. But that child is still in you, not lost, just quiet. And tonight, she stirs. He returns. They stand once more at the threshold of your sleep, not asking to be enlightened, not seeking wisdom, just wishing to sit still by the incense burner of your heart. Let them in. Let them remind you that nothing has to be solved, that peace is not a prize but a return to the eyes that could look at a cracked teacup and see the entire moon, a return to the feet that could walk without destination, a return to the heart that could forgive because it had not yet learned to withhold. You don't need to try so hard tonight. You don't need to finish the sentence. You don't need to make sense of the path. You only need to open the door and let the child come in, and let yourself become small again, and let the world be vast again. The monks never taught her, because in her presence they remembered the teaching they had buried beneath years of seeking. Beginner's mind is not the start of the journey, it is the destination. So sleep now, not as someone searching, but as someone who has arrived by forgetting. Forget what they told you. Forget what you told yourself. Forget what needs fixing. Forget what should be. Just breathe. And let the small child in your soul find their seat in the temple once more. No robes, no titles, no questions. Only this breath. Only this moment. Only this return. You have arrived. And the temple door was always open. There was once a young monk who swept the same courtyard every morning. He would rise before dawn, before the roosters woke, before the incense had burned, and before the tea had steeped. With a small broom made of reed and rope, he would walk the stone path in silence back and forth, until not a speck remained. The leaves would tremble as he passed. The dust would scatter like shy spirits, and by the time the sun touched the eastern wall, the stones were clear, the world was still, and the monk was exhausted. One morning, the old abbot watched him from the temple steps. He said nothing, just watched, as the boy swept with increasing speed, as if hoping to outpace the wind. The boy bowed when he saw him, sweat dripping down his brow. "I cannot seem to keep it clean," he confessed. "No matter how much I sweep, the dust always returns." The abbot nodded, then stepped down onto the dusty stone and sat, right there, in the middle of the courtyard, where the dust had begun to gather again. The boy watched, confused. "Master," he whispered, "you're sitting in the dust." The abbot smiled. "I am," he said. "And yet, I remain unmoved." Then he looked up, eyes soft as dusk. "There is a way to keep the courtyard clear," he said, "but it is not through sweeping." The boy waited. The abbot said nothing more. He simply closed his eyes and sat. And as the boy watched, something shifted. The wind calmed, the dust slowed, and the courtyard, bit by bit, became still, not because of effort, but because of stillness. The boy sat beside the master, not sweeping, not striving, just breathing. And for the first time in his life, he saw the dust not as something to fight, but as something that settles on its own when not disturbed. You have been sweeping your mind all day, clearing thoughts as they come, swatting away worries, trying to polish the stone of your life into something manageable, peaceful, perfect, and yet it never stays that way, does it? No matter how much you push the thoughts aside, they return. No matter how many affirmations you whisper, the dust floats back in. This is not your failure. This is the nature of wind, the nature of dust, the nature of thought. The more you chase stillness, the more it flees. The more you resist the moment, the more it resists you. But what if you stopped sweeping? What if you set the broom down tonight, just beside your chest? What if you allowed the dust to settle on its own? Not forever, just for now. Just long enough to see that clarity was never about control. It was about surrender. The monks say, the pond does not become clear by stirring the water. It becomes clear when left untouched. You are the pond. You are the courtyard. You are the wind and the breath and the hand that holds the broom, and you are allowed to let go. There is no one keeping score. There is no gatekeeper tonight watching to see if you've earned your peace. There is only this breath, this moment, this quiet. Let the dust fall where it may. Let your thoughts arrive like drifting leaves and let them rest. You don't need to organize them. You don't need to judge them. You don't need to fix yourself before you sleep, because you are not broken. You are simply covered in dust from a long, long day, and that dust left undisturbed will settle on its own. The world will not fall apart because you took a moment to be still. Let yourself return now to what the abbot knew, that peace does not come from doing. It comes from stopping. The mind does not need to be emptied. It only needs to be left alone. The soul does not need to be filled. It only needs to be listened to. And you don't need to be anything but here. Breathe. Let your hands unclench. Let your shoulders fall. Let the corners of your eyes soften. Let your chest move without needing to be deep or right or sacred. It already is. You have already done enough. Now the work is to stop working. Now the effort is to stop trying. Now the dust will settle without your help. It knows how. The courtyard in your chest will clear if you let it. The wind in your ribs will slow if you don't chase it. The silence you crave will come if you let go of chasing quiet like it's something outside yourself. You are not outside it. You are inside it. You are it. The monks say, when the dust settles, the Buddha is visible. So tonight, you do not seek the Buddha. You do not chant or bow or strive. You become still, and that is enough. Let the dust fall. Let the night rise. Let your thoughts drift, not like enemies, but like petals on a wind that no longer frightens you. Sleep now. Sleep as one who has laid down the broom. Sleep as one who trusts the world to hold itself. Sleep as one who has remembered how to be still without losing their way. Because stillness was the way all along. The master grew quiet in his final days, not because his voice had failed him, but because words no longer pointed to anything he wished to say. He still walked the monastery grounds, still sipped tea by the bamboo fence, still sat each dawn as the bell rang across the valley. But his students noticed something had changed. He no longer corrected them, no longer offered riddles, no longer gestured toward the moon or laughed at their seriousness. He simply watched and smiled, and sometimes closed his eyes mid-conversation, as if listening to something no one else could hear. When they asked for final teachings, he said only, "Soon." So they waited. One student believed he would offer a sacred phrase. Another expected a final parable. Some thought he might reveal a secret practice. But when the day came, he asked for no robe, no chanting, no scripture. He lay on a woven mat beneath an open window. The wind played softly through the paper walls. The scent of pine drifted in, and his students gathered, bowed, and waited. The youngest leaned close. "What is the final teaching, Master?" The master opened his eyes, met hers, held her gaze like a mirror, and then he smiled, breathed in, and whispered, "Nothing, not a word, not a breath of meaning, only silence." Not the silence of forgetting, but the silence of completion. And then he closed his eyes and did not open them again. The students sat for hours, waiting, as if a sound might come late, a final syllable drifting through the dusk. But there was none. The silence was the teaching. One student wept, another laughed, one wrote pages in his journal and then burned them all. Another said nothing for a week. But slowly they began to understand. It wasn't that the master had nothing left to say. It was that everything had already been said by wind and water and the space between bells. He had let go of form, and in doing so, he had pointed to something greater than form. Because what is the purpose of all these teachings, if not to prepare the soul for what cannot be spoken? Tonight, as the hour grows late, and your body begins to dissolve into the fabric of stillness, you too are approaching a kind of passing, not death, but the passing of the day, the passing of effort, the passing of the self, who always needs to do, to fix, to understand. There comes a moment in every night where words can no longer follow you, where even the gentlest thought feels too loud, where stories grow too heavy, and your name feels far away. You are nearing that moment now. And what waits for you is not empty. It is sacred. It is whole. It is not silence as absence, but silence as everything. Like the master's breath before it stopped. Like the sky before the sun returns. You do not need a mantra tonight. You do not need a lesson. You do not need to hold anything as you fall. You only need to listen to what has been speaking all along, beneath the narration, beneath the knowing, beneath even the breath. Can you hear it? That stillness between heartbeats, that pause at the end of your exhale, that hush that gathers at the edge of every sentence. That is the last teaching, and it has always been waiting. You've come far. You've read the sutras, listened to the stories, bowed before statues, asked 1,000 questions, answered 1,000 more. But now, there is no more to learn, only something to become, not by effort, not by thought, but by releasing. The monks say, the finger points to the moon, but the moon needs no pointing. The words brought you here, but they cannot carry you further. Only your willingness to let go can take you the rest of the way. The master knew this, and that is why he said nothing, because he trusted that silence would say everything you were finally ready to hear. So lie down now, like the master. Let the wind enter the window of your soul. Let the breath rise and fall without holding. You do not need a final word to end the day. You need only a final exhale. Let it come, let it carry you into the unspoken, let it cradle you in the arms of stillness. You are not missing anything. You are not late. You are not unfinished. You are simply coming home to the place where sound becomes space, and space becomes peace, and peace needs no explanation. Close your eyes, dear one. The final teaching has been given. Now let it echo through the silence that knows your name, even after you've forgotten it. Sleep now, and be blessed by what cannot be spoken. There was a time you believed you had to know where you were going. You looked for signs, watched others closely, compared your pace to theirs, worried if you were behind or ahead, or missing something that everyone else had already found. You traced paths on invisible maps, marked your days by progress, measured your worth by movement. You thought purpose meant a destination, that freedom came from direction, that if you didn't know where you were headed, you would be lost forever. But tonight, you are invited to be the wind. No road beneath, no horizon ahead, only motion without meaning, only breath without boundary. You are invited to dissolve into a sky that does not need you to arrive, only to pass through. There is an old story the monks tell of a man who chased the wind. He lived near the ocean, and every morning he woke before the tide pulled in, hoping to capture the breeze that danced along the cliffs. He brought jars, buckets, even netting. He climbed trees and balanced on rock. He chased and chased, believing that if he could only catch it, bottle it, he would be able to keep peace forever. But the wind did not want to be kept. Some days it whispered, some days it vanished. Other days it howled so loud it knocked the lids off his jars and scattered his maps into the sea. One day, an old monk walked by and saw the man panting, covered in sand, holding a broken jar as the wind laughed through the cliffs. The monk bowed. "Why do you chase it?" he asked. "Because it's free," the man said. "And I want to be like that." The monk smiled. "Then stop chasing it. Become it." And he turned and disappeared into the moving air. You see, the wind never asks where it's going. It never regrets where it's been. It passes through mountains, over oceans, into windows, through forests without asking permission, without needing a reason. And still, it moves everything. It shapes cliffs, carries seeds, turns deserts into blooming fields, delivers rain across the world without ever claiming a home, because the wind knows that meaning does not come from possession. It comes from presence, from being exactly where you are without clinging to where you were or rushing to where you think you should be. Can you live tonight like the wind? Can you stop chasing the version of yourself that finally gets it or proves it or earns rest? Can you let go of what you thought your life should look like by now? Can you allow sleep to carry you without direction, without ambition, without needing to achieve peace before you drift? You are not behind. You are not lost. You are simply in motion, the sacred, unseen motion of a soul returning to stillness by way of surrender. The monks say, "A tree stands because it is rooted. The wind moves because it is free. Both are whole." You do not need to choose between groundedness and freedom. You are allowed to be both. Rooted in being, free in becoming, stable in breath, weightless in letting go. Let your mind untie itself from the knots of what now. Let your body float in the hammock of not knowing. Let your chest rise and fall like the open air, not forced, not trapped, not striving, just here, just now. Just moving, and if a thought comes, let it drift like a leaf. If an old worry stirs, bless it and blow it gently to the horizon of dreams. You do not need to solve before you sleep. You only need to soften into what cannot be solved. Because the wind is wise. It carries without grasping. It touches without taking. It travels the entire world without leaving a trace. And yet you always know when it's near. That's how your soul feels tonight. You don't need to prove it. You only need to be it. Not forever. Just for this breath. Just for this hour. Let go of the maps. Let go of the timelines. Let go of the weight of needing your life to make sense. Sense will return. But for now, rest in mystery. Rest in the rhythm of wind that moves without needing to arrive. Sleep like the sky, vast, open, and untouched by where the stars go. Sleep like the wind, free, formless, unburdened. The monks once said, "The wind needs no path, and still it reaches everything." So trust yourself to reach everything by letting go of everywhere. You are not late. You are not early. You are not broken. You are not bound. You are the wind. And tonight, you are free. They searched for the master after the morning bell echoed across the mountains, but he was gone. No note, no farewell, no trace of where his footsteps led. Only his robe folded neatly on the stone where he used to sit. No sandals, no bowl, not even the walking stick that had tapped its way across the wooden floors for decades. Just the robe soft with age, gathering the first dew of morning. And silence. Not the silence of absence, but of completion. Some monks gasped, others wept. One laughed and bowed low to the robe, as if it were still filled with the Master's breath. Because it was. He had not vanished. He had expanded. The birds in the trees carried his gaze. The steam from the morning tea curled like his smile. The wind brushing the pages of scripture felt like his fingertips. No body remained, but his presence was everywhere. He had taught them this, again and again, not with sermons, but by how he drank water, by how he bowed, by how he smiled at the most foolish question, as if it were the key to the universe. He had told them softly, "One day I will leave no trace, but you will find me in every breath." And now he had. Tonight, you are being invited into that same disappearing, not a vanishing of self into nothing, but a soft return into everything. You are not being asked to erase who you are, only to let go of the weight of who you think you have to be, the identity you protect, the name you wear like armor, the stories you've clung to so tightly, you forgot you were the one writing them. There is a deeper self beneath all that, a self that needs no robe, no form, no proof, a self that is not afraid to dissolve. The monks say, the ego dies like mist in morning light, not with a scream, but with a sigh. Let yourself sigh now, not in defeat, in release, in relief. You are not the robe. You are the space it once held. You are not the name. You are the breath that speaks it. You are not the story. You are the silence beneath the words. This is the secret the Master left behind, that freedom is not found in becoming more but in becoming less. Less attached, less rigid, less defined. Until one day, like him, you leave behind only a gentle presence woven through the air, like the fragrance of sandalwood long gone. Let yourself begin that journey tonight. The journey of dissolving. Let your thoughts grow soft. Let your roles fall away. Let your face loosen, your chest open, your hands unclench. You don't need to carry it all into sleep. Let the part of you that's always managing fade like mist. Let the part of you that's always remembering grow still. Let the part of you that tries to be good rest in the arms of simply being. Even the robe must come off before you lie down. Even the name must be set on the shelf beside the bed. Tonight, you are allowed to be formless, like wind, like sky, like breath. You are allowed to be nowhere and still be held. You are allowed to forget and still be loved. You are allowed to stop, because the stopping is the arrival. The monks would sometimes say, the master who disappears has become the teaching itself. You are becoming that too, in sleep, in stillness, in surrender. So lie down now, like the master, not to vanish, but to become light enough to be everywhere. You do not need a grand conclusion, no applause, no understanding, only breath, only trust, only this exhale. The robe falls, the self softens, the form dissolves, and what remains is everything you've ever needed to become, not through striving, not through seeking, but through the sacred act of disappearing into peace. Sleep now, as if you've already gone beyond. Sleep now, as if the robe has fallen, and the sky is where your soul now walks. You are not missing. You are here in every leaf, in every breath, in every heartbeat of the world. Let go now. You are not the form. You are the freedom that remains after the form is gone. It was always the quietest moment that woke you, not the bell itself, but the breath before it, not the chime, but the space that held it. Each morning in the monastery, long before sunrise, you'd lie still, wrapped in the hush of your own breath, and wait. The bell hung above the courtyard, a vast bronze body that had known 1,000 dawns. It did not rush, it did not boast. It waited, like a mountain that did not need to prove its height. And as you lay there, eyes half closed, heart half dreaming, you began to notice something. You were already awake before the bell rang. The body stirred softly. The mind stilled without command. The breath deepened of its own accord. There was no jolt, no sudden noise, no outside call, just a presence gathering itself like light behind a mountain moments before the sun. This, the master once said, is the bell before the bell, the awakening before the awakening, the moment you realize you're already here. Tonight, you are nearing that same moment. The body has begun its surrender. The thoughts move more slowly now, like lanterns drifting down a quiet stream. The stories have softened their grip. You are already being held, not by this bed, not by this night, not by this voice, but by the mother of all things, the silence that never left you, the one who was there in every moment you felt alone, the one who waited patiently through every storm of thought, every tight breath, every unanswered prayer. She never once asked you to be better. She only asked that you remember you were never apart from her. Let your breath fall now, like petals on a forest floor. Let your mind rest like a bowl emptied after offering all it had. There is no resistance here, no reason left to hold on. The silence does not punish you for your noise. It welcomes all and asks nothing. Let yourself dissolve into her now, gently, like mist through moonlight, like warmth through cloth. Let her cradle your thoughts, your fears, your name. Let her stroke your forehead with wind. Let her rock you with the rhythm of 1,000 generations who laid down just like this and returned to what could not be harmed. You are not alone in this silence. You are surrounded by every being who ever wished for peace. Their breath is your breath. Their stillness is your inheritance. The monks say, you do not enter silence. You remember that you are it. Tonight, you remember, not with the mind but with the soul, not through effort but by falling backward into the arms of something that cannot fall. Even your sleep is not yours to manage now. Even your dreams are not yours to direct. Let them be carried like lanterns across a river you no longer need to cross. You are home already. And this silence, this soft, sacred motherlight that needs no candle, is all that remains. No more teaching, no more seeking, no more healing to chase. Only what has always held you, not to fix, not to change, just to love without sound. Stay here, float, drift, disappear if you must. The world will still turn, the stars will still burn, the silence will still hold you. And in the morning, you will rise not as someone who slept, but as someone who remembered what they are. You are silence before it becomes sound. You are light before it touches flame. You are the stillness that gave birth to the wind. You are the presence that never left. Rest now. Fall not into sleep, but into the arms of the silence that loved you long before you knew its name. You made it, without trying, without finishing anything, without solving a single riddle. You did not pass a test. You did not reach the end of a path. You simply softened until the path disappeared beneath you. And now you are here, not at the end, but at the return. Not outside, but at the center of what was never missing. They told you stories, didn't they? Of boats and bowls, of bells and birds, of flames that fed the dark and monks who vanished without goodbye. They told you about gates that open inward, children who understand what scholars forget, and dust that settles when left alone. But none of those stories were really about them. They were about you. You were the traveler pierced by the second arrow, learning how to let the pain be pain without adding your own. You were the empty boat bumping softly against the world and realizing that not all harm is personal. You were the master who forgot his name and in doing so remembered his soul. You were the candle, the bowl, the ox, the robe, the wind, the bell. You were every step and every silence between steps, not because you needed them, but because you had forgotten what it meant to simply be. Each story was a mirror placed gently in your hands. And now, As the final breath of night draws near, even the mirror dissolves. There is no one left to reflect, only reflection. No one left to hold the teachings, only the hands they softened, and the whisper that comes, "Now it is not from me. It is from the place inside you that has always known what to do when it's time to let go. So let's not speak much longer. Let's just sit here in the glow after the flame. You don't need to close anything. You don't need to wrap this up. It was never open to begin with. The circle was always closed. You just needed to stop walking to see it. Let that be enough. Let the stillness bless you now. Let the air around you become the old monk's robe, draped over your shoulders for the final ceremony that requires nothing but your presence. Sleep is not the end. It is the whisper of something sacred returning to itself. The teachings are done. You are not. You remain, as presence, as peace, as breath, as the one who always belonged. You've heard enough now. Not too much. Not too little. Just enough for the soul to soften and the breath to settle into its cradle. There is nothing left to remember, nothing left to carry, not even the teachings, even the truths you loved most. Let them rest now, like folded robes on a wooden bench after the last ceremony has passed. This final moment is not a conclusion. It is a return to what was never broken. No one is watching. No one is measuring. You are not being tested on what you learned. You were never meant to master anything, only to melt, to dissolve so fully that even the desire to awaken becomes quiet. This is where the true silence lives, not the silence between words, but the one beneath all of them. The silence beneath thought, the silence beneath your name, the silence that watched you sleep even when you thought you were alone. You've already crossed every threshold. You've already bowed to every bell. There is no last gate, no final riddle, just this. The soft exhale that asks nothing in return, the dimming light that does not resist the dark, the monk's whisper that does not need to be heard to bless you. So now, imagine the candle, the one that sat beside you all night. Its flame steady, its wax slow to give. It never asked to be seen. It never needed to be thanked. It simply stayed lit until you were ready to rest without it. And now, without ceremony, without goodbye, it flickers, it fades. Not because something ended, but because you no longer need it. The room remains. The warmth remains. The teaching remains not in thought, but in being. Even without the flame, its light has entered you. Even without the voice, the silence remembers you. So rest now, not as the student, not as the seeker, not as the one who made it to the end. Rest as the space where endings dissolve. Rest as the breath that has no beginning. Rest as the presence that no longer needs to understand. There is nothing more to do, nothing more to say. No need to try, or hold on, or wait for the final sound. This is the last whisper, the one you don't have to hear to receive. Let it move through you like wind through an open gate. Let it bless you like morning mist on an old wooden floor. Let it carry you like silence carries every sacred thing. You are already home. You are already free. You are already what the candle tried to tell you with its one small flame. Now it's time. Let go. Let go. Let go. The last whisper has already spoken, and now only sleep